call system just disconnected, so going to figure that out. But we're taking calls at 720-619-2288, 720-619-2288. What in the world? It's not even disconnected. Why did that sound play? And now that's a different sound that I don't recognize. Are we on air? Did something freeze? What the fuck just happened?
Froze. Can you hear me now?
I do hear you.
So I didn't hear the intro music. And as soon as you said, like, welcome and started giving the date, everything froze.
Word.
And then you came back and you're like, whatever. So we're now unfrozen. I can see us on YouTube even.
Today has had thing after thing after thing that if I believed in a deity, I would think they didn't want the show to go on. And then I would do it anyway because in rebellion, because fuck that guy. So I'm just going to repeat everything I said and assume nobody heard anything anywhere. Because monitoring on my end, I've got a connection and everything. And then it just weirdly, okay, do we not have, I'm going to reconnect our host system here also.
Ready to connect.
Now I'm going to mute it while it finishes connecting. Welcome, everyone. What the fuck? This is the Sunday show.
Welcome to the Sunday show, yeah.
Yeah, this is Matt Dillahunty and I'm Jimmy Snow. It is June 25th, 2023. This is your foremost, despite the tech issues, call-in show about spirituality, atheism, theism, religiosity. We are taking calls at 720-619-2288. There's a web link in the description right now. It's been quite a 48 hours. A last 48 hours. Go on.
I think we could be forgiven for just taking today off or having a technical issue since yesterday went so smoothly. So
yeah. Yesterday was fantastic. And that was truly yesterday's event. For those of you who don't know, we did a fundraiser for recovering from religion, which, by the way, if you go back and you watch now, or you just go, hey, I actually wanted to contribute, but payday wasn't here yet. That is open for the rest of the month. You can actually go and still donate. And Matt, do you want to remind people what's on the line? Shit, why didn't I think about what I was just saying? What's on the line, Matt?
What's on the line is this. Seth Andrews, who's studying to be a world-renowned artist, put together some new drawings, including one of a cat that was just exceptional. I don't have a good, strong copy of it yet, but I really, genuinely, no bullshit, no gimmick. I love this thing, and so if we get to the $44,000 mark, not only has someone agreed to donate an additional $1,000 to get us to the $45,000 mark after we hit there, but at $44,000. I will get that cat drawing that Seth made tattooed on me. And so, yeah, I guess it takes a little bit of the sting out of it, knowing that I legitimately want to get it tattooed. But you know what? It's still, it's going to be a good story for a long time. It seems like a really good reason to possibly get some cash.
Yeah. No, definitely. So that is still open. We did pass 37,000. We're closing in on 38,000. I think we're under $45 away. I actually have no tattoos. I've seen one on you, the compass looking one on your arm. I have not. I've thought
one on my arm is crossed anchors.
Right. Sounds like a Navy thing.
Yes, I was in the Navy for 8.5 years. It's definitely a Navy thing.
I've thought about getting just a line, and then when people are like, what a tattoo is that? And just like, what's the line? That's the only clever one I have. I have an idea for my shoulder as well that I've thought about for like a decade. And since I still want it a decade later, I'll probably do it. But my commitment issues are afoot. But anyway, the fundraiser is still open. Go do that. We want to see Matt with that tattoo of this cat. I've asked Seth to send me a picture of the tattoo. Seth says he doesn't think you should probably do it, but he doesn't know your sheer force of will. I'll work on later in the show showing off the the picture we're talking about. I'll get that into the system so we can show it. In the meantime, if you want to talk to us about leaving religion, you want to talk to us about your religion, your spiritual belief. We love to talk to people who have any sort of supernatural belief, any sort of deistic belief, theistic belief. If you believe in astrology and you want to, I'm still waiting for the perfect astrology caller to call in. In fact, I think every time I've laid down the challenge, no, one person called once, but they didn't defend that astrology was true. They defended that it was useful. I would love a person to defend that it's true, but we'd love to talk to you. 720-619-2288. If you're calling from outside, there is a web link in the description. Otherwise, we will get started here and start talking to Andrew in Pennsylvania. Andrew in Pennsylvania, you are on the line with Jimmy and Matt.
Or are you?
I guess not. Let me try one more time. Oh,
there we go.
Yeah, they've moved buttons in Collins Studio. Another thing to change on a Sunday. Hi, Andrew. You're on the line with Jimmy and Matt.
Oh, hello.
Hello.
How you doing?
I'm doing all right.
Good.
I wanted to talk about something I've seen a lot of discussion on in terms of people in political spaces and the atheists who exist in those spaces as well. It seems like some people who are religious, Christians, you could say predominantly, feel a little put off about people who are vocal atheists in these spaces, not necessarily because they disagree with them politically, but because they just feel like, okay, why are we talking about this kind of thing? Like, I'm just not sure what to say to people who are religious or atheists in these in spaces that I share with them on political issues.
Can you give like an example? Because I'm not. Yeah. It sounds like you're saying Christians, even if they disagree with atheists, feel put off by vocal atheists. Why should I fucking care if they're put off by a vocal atheist?
Well,
I mean, the political issue, whatever the political issue is, if we agree on it, I don't care if they don't like my hairstyle or other things that aren't relevant to that. So maybe give an example, make it easier.
Yeah.
Yeah, I see where you're coming from. One example was I saw a content creator who's, a vocal atheist online. I think he's always been an atheist online. And they're kind of making the excuse, okay, if you are a progressive and a Christian, those are two contradictive ideas here. And while I'm not really arguing against that position, someone else was on there and was basically saying, why are you making this an issue? If they're progressive, that should be good enough. Like, what kind of discussion should we be having in this kind of space? Like, is it worthwhile to confront somebody if they have like a ethical discrepancy problem with like their religious belief and their political belief, or is it more along the lines of there's a time and space for this? And
so
like
I call out
at all?
So there are gay-friendly, rainbow flag-having progressive churches all over the place that are, we're Christian and we're all queer. And I'm very happy that they are decent folks who are progressive on a number of issues. And I'm also happy to point out that what they're talking about isn't remotely biblical. They don't have a theological leg to stand on. And wouldn't it be better if they just abandon all that doctrine that's been used to marginalize and vilify them throughout history and just became seculars? Now, I get that this isn't a choice and they can't just say, yep, you're right, I'll give up Christianity, because they're convinced that it's true and they're convinced that they've got, a legitimate version of it. But I have no problem at all calling out hypocrisy. And especially from people who are on my side. I spend more time arguing with and correcting atheists on stupid shit than theists. I do debates against theists, but like in this past week, there was an individual, I'm not going to name any names. I'm not even sure I'll remember names, but he posted on Facebook. I'm sick of this submarine stuff on Facebook, but I'm not, am I bothered by the fact that some really rich people did something incredibly stupid and died? No, I'm not losing a lot of sleep over it. Some of the memes have been funny. But when somebody says fat cat gazillionaires, I'm going to, my humanism doesn't care about them. What I object to is that they're trying to present their lack of empathy and their lack of compassion as if it's consistent with humanism. I'm more bothered by the fact that people are misrepresenting humanism than I am that people are laughing at some people dying in a sub. We've got the Darwin Awards. You make fun of whatever you want. That doesn't bother me. What bothered me was people making fun of humanism. Then this morning, there's an individual who posts just a bunch of memes constantly. And no, it's not my ex-girlfriend. She's awesome. But the individual posts a bunch of memes constantly, keeps posting really bad memes. And one of them that they shared this morning was like a picture of Bart Ehrman and Bart Ehrman's name, and then an argument for mythicism. And it made it look like Ehrman's a mythicist. But he's not. He's the exact opposite. I know, because not only have I sat here and interviewed him right here on the line, but I moderated a debate between him and Bob Price where he's anti-mythicist. And it's just so exhausting having credulous atheists who don't bother to see if the meme they're sharing is blatantly misrepresenting stuff, that I just unfriended him. Now, does that mean I hate the person? No. But I have a limited amount of time and a limited number of spoons to correct stuff. So when we're lobbying to bring in voters, when we're getting people involved in politics, I will go to every rainbow flag having gay pride, super lefty Christian churchgoer out there and say, awesome, we need to work together for this goal. And I will also say, by the way, your shit ain't biblical. Why do you keep doing this? I don't need to do them at the same time.
Yeah, I have similar versions to, in fact, I'm very loudly, because I'm one of those obnoxious people, in the process of leaving Twitter. And part of why it's kind of like Matt at this point is just looking for an excuse for the tattoo. I was just looking for the excuse to leave anyway, but they did pass a line in the amount of effort people put on there to just excuse that I'm going to act with zero empathy for people. Even the concept of another person's humanity is something I was excited to get away from. And I'm not only talking about if it was just a right-wing thing, I wouldn't leave Twitter. I wouldn't care, because it's like, that's what I expect out of them. It's not what I expect out of my side. So similarly off-put by a lot of that shit this week. As far as the talking to progressive people and trying to, it's just comes down to is it true or not? And do you advocate for what is true and what isn't true? That said, clearly, I don't put as high a priority on debunking progressive Christianity, though any debunk of Christianity at large is going to have at least some overflow into progressive Christianity. There's still, based on the same book and the like, but there's just not the same priority. If you look at content I've made, you don't see the same level of responding to a progressive pastor versus a pastor who's doing some demonstrable bad stuff. But the other whole point of it all, Andrew, is whether or not it's true or not. Yes, that's the foundation. As far as whether or not it's actually harmful, I've not actually been presented any version of Christianity or any faith-based belief system that I can't point to some level of harm from. In fact, I would say that faith, period, is inherently harmful, and have defended that on many occasions.
Well, there is one other element that I've seen brought up, and it's the whole idea of the anti-theist angle. And some people argue not just, okay, there's a problem with atheists, there's a bigger problem with anti-theists who will make a bigger deal about the religious angle than about the political angle.
And it's become meaningless because anti-theist has now been co-opted by the people who are anti-atheist and they are the ones who get to then say, our definition of if somebody says they're an anti-theist, they are saying they're the equivalent of an Islamophobe. A person who identifies as an anti-theist is saying that they are just opposed to theism in all forms off the bat, and whether it's true or not, that they're basically just pro-theistic bigotry. There's not a meaningful definition of the term. Most of the people who say they are anti-theist are saying that I put some amount of my activism, some amount of my conscious efforts into fighting against theism in all forms that I've presently seen, because I haven't seen a harmless form. The word anti-theist was fine and no one had a problem with it until, frankly, despite the fact that I have many friends in this group, a lot of pagan people who are loud and popular on Twitter and the like decided to change what the term meant. So as far as I have no problem calling myself an anti-theist, but I have a problem with being defined by theists of what I mean when I say I'm an anti-theist.
I don't really use the term anymore. In part because, for a number of reasons, what I meant by anti-theist isn't necessarily what Christopher Hitchens meant by anti-theist. And I realize that it could be viewed as if I'm anti-theist, as if I'm anti the person, as opposed to anti-theism, which I am anti-theism. I am anti-religion. But I want to know when you're talking about this, Andrew, and you're saying there are people who have more of a problem with anti-theist than atheist. What do they mean? What is it that they actually have a problem with?
I think they have a problem with issues. Well, it usually does kind of revolve around the same kind of arguments against being an atheist at all, kind of, as well as just the general, like, okay, is there a point to having this discussion? We don't care about having this discussion. That tends to be like the range of the discussion as to what it is about, if that makes any sense.
I'm sorry, I'm not sure I followed that. I'm just asking, when they object to anti-theist, what is it you think they're objecting to?
What do I think that they're objecting to? It's hard to say because they're kind of vague about it.
Okay.
It just seems
then
like
I would
they
think
just
the thing to
don't
do is
want people.
If we get back to what you were originally asking at the top of the call, which is, hey, in these spaces, there are Christians who feel put off by vocal atheists. Well, maybe they're more objecting to anti-theists. If it's vague, then I'm happy you called in and everything, but don't call me and ask for advice. Ask them what the hell they mean. What is it they're objecting to? Because if we're in agreement on the political issue, if what they're objecting to or what I'm objecting to is roughly the equivalent of, I'm glad we're working together to restore a right to choose, but I really hate your hairstyle. I mean, that's pretty stupid to bring up something that's irrelevant. And if we're both in agreement that we should be working to restore choice and codify Roe, then it's not like I'm happy that somebody might be religious and also be in favor of this. I think it is the Bible's pretty silent on abortion, and it's difficult to make a biblical argument opposed to abortion that isn't an oversimplification like thou shalt not murder. And they'll go to the passage in Jeremiah where the Bible says, I knew before you were born, or before I formed you in the womb, I knew you. And they're trying to make it seem as if God has formed somebody in the womb, and then that's the start of life, and that's when the soul's implanted. But that's in the Old Testament, and Jewish doctrine or tradition actually has God breathing the breath of life into someone at birth, which is why they're not as opposed to abortion. Those are all discussions that can be had about how and why somebody might be hypocritical, or, they may be in favor of a political issue despite their religion. But none of that has to happen in the course of let's go out and work on something. It may crop up because if, let's say we're out there at a rally, right here, Planned Parenthood right around the corner from my house, and we're out there and there's a bunch of, anti-choice people protesting. And then there's a bunch of us out there that are counter-protesting. If somebody comes up to the counter-protester next to me and goes, I know you go to my church. Well, that's going to be a relevant discussion. And granted, I'm not the one that brought it up. But when they get into that discussion, I'm going to end up siding with the anti-choice people about whether or not that person from their church is being hypocritical, depending on what verses and doctrine they cite. So I think you'd have to go ask them, what is it that they're really bothered about, and why does it matter? Because some of it may.
Mm-hmm. Okay. All right. Well, I appreciate the time given to my question. Gave me a lot to think about.
Sure. I appreciate it. Thanks, Andrew.
Okay. Bye.
We're going to... Yeah, go ahead.
Go ahead.
I'm going to show the photo of... We've got a call being screened. We had another call lining up that dropped at one point, but I do have the photo now to show everybody, so this works out. This would be... this is the correct one, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
I mean, that is... There's very little... and if I end up getting this tattoo, it will not only include the cat at the top, but it will include Seth's signature below it. Now, I might move Seth's signature up a little closer just so that the whole thing doesn't take quite as much space. But sure. And I also don't know which body part I'm going to put it on.
That was going to be my next question. Have you?
It will not be on my forehead or the top of my head.
Yeah, obviously, nothing neck up.
Or the back of my... Yes, you're not going to be able to see it while I'm hosting the show. But I do have this nice zipper on my chest from my open heart surgery. And I could see getting this as a potential chest tattoo off the side. I could see that.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. John just suggested I get it as a tramp stamp. I don't know how that would work. I might put it like right above or right at the waistband so that it's like a front tramp stamp.
Now you said you said it's not going to go anywhere that we see while you're hosting the show, but do keep in mind, depending on how things go, we might have to go the Twitch streamer route and start doing some of these shows hosted from a hot tub. So it could happen.
Yeah.
If we have to start doing those hot tub shows.
You wouldn't see it right now. By the way, so Jimmy had mentioned earlier, I actually have 3 tattoos. Yes, I have 3 tattoos right now. I have that, which is crossed anchors from the 8 years that I was in the Navy. That was done originally with a sewing needle and ink from a ballpoint pen during the Gulf War because we were bored and sitting there, and I let this guy just sit there with the needle and go tick, 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 tick for hours.
Wow.
I won't do that again, but after 20 minutes or so, there's nothing in it that could possibly hurt. And then I had it touched up with a gun, but now it's just muddy and old. The one on my upper arm is the Out Campaign A. So when Dawkins announced the Out Campaign, that very day, I went and got that tattoo, which I later showed him. And then I have one on my back, which is Locutus from the Star Trek Next Generation Borg episode. And it's just a headshot of Locutus. And I don't know what it looks like right now because it's on my back and I don't ever look at it. But Arden knows what it looks like.
Cool.
She'll give it a kiss every now and then just to irritate me. She's like, oh, Locutus. And I'm like, stop.
We're going to go to Oregon and talk to Lyra. Lyra, pronouns she, they, in Oregon. You are on the line with Jimmy Snow and Matt Dillahunty.
Good afternoon.
Hello.
How you doing?
I'm wonderful. How are you two?
I'm pretty wonderful as well. We did some good stuff yesterday, and I'm still kind of riding the high.
That's true.
Yeah, no, I was here for most of it, just kind of watching. It was amazing. So,
well, awesome.
Congratulations to everyone.
Yeah, Lyra, what did you want to chat about?
So I wanted to talk about today just how Christianity, or religion more in general, I suppose, is used to define specifically for me, like my role as a daughter, and then later, as an adult woman, what was expected of me, and how it still, even though I've let that go long ago, how that still is ingrained in me, and how I present myself sometimes, how I think of myself, things like that.
Go for it.
Sorry. When I was a child, my dad was a pastor for many years, and he left the ministry, but he stayed, very evangelical-ish. Definitely not to the degree it is now, though I don't know for sure. I haven't spoken to him in many years. Just the way he used just God, that he would just basically tell me to my face that he was ordained by God as the man of the house, as the father, that his will was law in the house, and my role, my only role as his child, was to make sure that I honored and served him, my dad. Right? And how that extended to, all like the male authority in my life, which would include my husband at some point, he would hope, and just how I just, when encountering anyone at this point, I automatically think of myself as starting at a deficit. I somehow have to earn the right to speak to this person before I can then talk on an equal ground with this person. If that makes any sense, what I just said.
I understood the dad part. The second part I got a little lost on.
Okay. Let's see if I can equate it. Like, because I was brought up to think that I had no inherent worth or use other than to serve the men in my life. I just kind of, in my brain, extended that to everyone, that my job was to be of service to others, and that if I wanted to be on equal footing with this person, I somehow had to work my way up from the servant role to an equal person role with someone else.
And was it that if they were men, it wasn't presumed that they also had inherently no value, or that if they were men, correct, they inherently had value, but if they were women, were you equal to them automatically? What was the situation?
When I was brought up, like I was equal to other women, I suppose, but I took that even in a more negative way, that I was not equal to anyone. I was less than like human.
Which branch is there a specific branch of Christianity you were affiliated with?
Salvation Army.
Gotcha. Okay.
Yeah.
So yeah, extremely patriarchal, basically, is what you're saying. Yeah. Sorry, Matt, I was asking clarifying questions. I think you had a place you wanted to go with it.
No. Well, you're fine. I think I've gone everywhere that my brain can in a coherent way.
Yeah, you're good. Go ahead, Matt.
Okay.
I was answering something.
Oh, go ahead.
He's saying, "Go ahead, Matt." Lyra.
Yeah.
So
Matt.
The thing is, your notion that you have to work your way up to be equal, or to be able to communicate that level, was that even possible? Because if the notion is that you're supposed to be submissive and everything else, then you can't work your way up.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. Exactly. It's a status that I will never be able to reach, and yet I still strive to reach it, even though I don't believe I can. Yeah.
Gotcha. So is basically the point of your call to ask, how do you start to let stuff like this go? How do you stop perceiving yourself when you have a new interaction with a man as someone who has to earn your space at the table? Or is it mostly just to sort of cathartically express, this is where I came from and it fucking sucked? Because we agree, It definitely fucking sucked.
The latter. The latter. No, I don't have a general question for you two. I apologize.
Okay.
It's just that, yeah.
Yeah, no worries. So we'll just agree with you that it fucking sucks. And thank you for calling, Lyra. Yeah, it sounds like a heavily patriarchal thing. We're already aware that Salvation Army is, I will go out of my way to not pay the Salvation Army bell ringers anymore and tell other people that they could do almost anything better with that change. Especially when Salvation Army started letting people die in the cold because they weren't following society's gender roles and sexual orientation roles. So, yeah, terrible organization. No need to support it during Christmas time. Feel free to start your own change jar and then give that to someone that actually deserves it, like Recovering from Religion, who, Lyra, I'm sure you would have benefited greatly from when you were first leaving if you had contacted them as far as deconstructing that. But I'm happy to hear that you've been able to deconstruct from those feelings since then.
Yeah. Thank you.
Awesome. Thanks, Lyra.
Mm-hmm.
Still in the plug for Recovering from Religion mode. Okay.
Yes.
I'm just going to set up the call and then I'm going to let Matt take it. But I want to make sure. Okay. Here's what I'm just going to do. Is it Ram or Ram? Ram from New Delhi? How do I pronounce this?
Ram.
Ram. Okay. Ram from New Delhi has heard Matt's deconversion story and says that he is not convinced by Matt's deconversion story, which is a very strange way to put it, and is therefore still a theist. Which
I have lots of questions because I think you're inferring things from the, like, it doesn't say that he's still a theist because he wasn't convinced by my story.
The notes he put in before the screener changed them to be more refined did. So Ram had put.
And I just hung my queen. All right.
So
go ahead.
Ram, go ahead and set it up as you like. But I'm very interested.
No, I just last time I wanted to have a conversation with Matt on his own story about how he first was atheist and then he was not. First he believed in a personal God, and then he became an atheist. So I want to understand just from Matt. That's all.
What would you like to know?
What happened before you were a believer? Then what happened? You started reading the texts, and let's say you don't believe in the actual Christian thing. Maybe you believe in then you started to think more abstractly about God. But then what happened? You suddenly one day said that no, there's no God. There's a lack of belief. Whatever.
I've told my story dozens and dozens of times, and you're now asking me to tell you my story? I thought you called in because you weren't convinced by my story. Why would you ask me?
No, no, that was wrong.
I'm still talking, Ram. Ram, I'm still talking. Right. Why would you ask me what happened before I believe and after I believe and how did I find my way out if, in fact, you'd heard my story?
Because I wanted to have a conversation on that with you. That's why I called.
Well, but you're asking me questions that you should already know if you heard the story. So ask me a specific question.
What made you finally convinced, I'm dropping God?
When I realized that my beliefs didn't have sufficient evidence to warrant them. It wasn't a decision. It's not a choice. I was convinced for many years for very bad reasons. And when I found out the reasons were bad, I stopped being convinced. There's not a decision. There's not a single thing. It's if you listed the 10 reasons that you think heart disease is caused by ice cream, and then you go through those 10 reasons, and all of them are flawed, then you no longer have a justification for believing that heart disease is caused by ice cream. That's just the way reasoning works.
No, reasoning also was creative, tries to find out more about the world. You've stopped learning about things. At one point,
wait,
you always say
you're
that this is too scientific. I can't get into the realm of it. Why not? You should read about these things.
Wait, Ram.
I read about these things a lot.
Oh my God.
Ram, you're suggesting that I've stopped learning and that I don't understand science? Is that what you're saying?
Yes.
Then you're a fucking idiot.
No,
yes, you are a fucking idiot. Not only have I not stopped learning, I'm an obsessive. Not only have I not stopped learning, I'm an obsessive learner. When I say on the show that somebody's asking questions that go into a scientific area that I'm not particularly knowledgeable about, that's just an honest answer. Do you realize how many topics as an atheist on a call-in show I have to be nearly an expert on? And yet when I acknowledge that there are things that I am not an expert on, you want to pretend that I've stopped learning. And you want to call in to suggest that my story didn't convince you when you don't seem to know my story. And when my story doesn't exist to convince you. My story only needed to convince me. I tell this story because it's true. Because I was raised primarily a fundamentalist, evangelical, Southern Baptist, and I walked down the aisle at the age of 5 and accepted Jesus into my heart. And then I was active in the church all of my youth until I went into the Navy, where I became slightly less active. And then when I was closing in on 30, I thought that God was punishing me for not becoming a preacher. So I set out to be the best Christian I could be and to find a way to convince my atheist roommate at the time, because I didn't want to get to heaven and have God. Why are you making noises?
Sorry.
I'm sitting here running through the whole story. And then I'm an absolutely obsessive learner, and you want to somehow pretend that I've stopped learning, that science is too difficult for me, when researching the basics of my story that you supposedly disagree with was too difficult for you. Shall we start over, Ram?
I'm going to see if I'm going to try and give you some direction here. Before Matt disabused you of your notion of his not learning, was it your thought, was it your position, Ram, that when Matt became an atheist, he decided to stop learning, and that's why he did not see the reasons, the good reasons to believe in God that you have, because he was in a state of not learning? Was that your position?
No, I think it must be something different. It must be too painful.
What must be too painful?
What must be too painful?
To have the concept of God in everyday life and believing that there is a God when everything chaotic is happening.
What you're suggesting is Matt doesn't believe, not because there's not a good reason to believe, but because it would be too painful for him to believe. So what is a good reason for Matt or I or anybody to believe in God, Mr. Can tell who is and isn't still in a state of learning? You must be able to enlighten us now and tell us that even if it's painful, even if it hurts to hear the truth is X, and here's why it's true. Surely you can do that, Ram.
I don't believe in God because I don't believe in God because I haven't seen a good reason. Can you present a good reason?
Well, when I believe in God, I feel very positive, and I'm a good person that I'm able.
Ram, I asked you for a good reason to believe in God, and you said that when you believe in God, you feel good. Is feeling good a good reason to believe something?
Yes.
It is. So feeling good, do you think that stalkers who believe that the person that they're in love with loves them back, do you think that makes them feel good?
That's not good. No, that's not good.
Do you think it makes them feel good?
It does make them feel good, yes.
It does make them feel good. So now you're admitting that feeling good isn't a reason. It's not a demonstration that there's anything true. When I ask for a good reason, Captain Matt, stop fucking learning. Give me a good reason. So what's a good reason to believe in a God?
Well, all of this goes on top of your social culture. You have
no, sir. No, sir. No, sir. You don't get to. No. When I say give me a good reason to believe in God, how does all of this goes on top of? Shut up. How does all of this goes on top of your social culture? How is that a good reason for believing in God?
Well, because you understand that there is systems in place, right?
No,
Everything
Ram,
systematic
you're
in
going
nature.
the wrong way again. You're sitting here and going, some societies function upon the basis of a religion. So that's a reason to believe God is real. That would be a bad reason, because more societies have believed in certainly the wrong gods than the right ones, because even if there's one right God out there, the rest are all wrong. By the way, I don't think there's any right gods out there. So Ram, what's a good reason to believe that within reality, God exists, not God is functional, that there's a function to belief in God, rather, not societies believe in God and then they run their systems on them. What is a good reason to believe a God exists?
I do understand that such a proof is very long.
Where does it begin?
Many years. Of course it requires. Let me say something about this.
No, Ram, because we've already heard this before. Matt and I got it. It's one of our most viral clips. It would take us weeks to explain just the concept of biblical slavery to you. So this whole idea of the ability to believe.
We didn't even discuss what.
We'll get there in a second.
So here, let's start, Ram. Which God do you believe is real?
I believe that there's a personal God. Okay, and.
Hang on, Ram. What do you mean, just a personal God?
A personal God who, basically, I think that we can understand our future. We can predict our future, and sometimes when we get dreams about, let's say, deja vu or things.
This isn't a God. Deja vu is actually deja vu is a psychological phenomenon, and this isn't a God. Who is the God?
I just want to be clear here.
We are ourselves the God.
We are ourselves the God. Okay, Ram, you can stop talking now and listen. Okay? Okay. Look, you smug little shit. You called in to talk shit about my conversion story, and we've sat here and patiently asked you, what were the good reasons to believe in God? Well, it makes me feel good. Do you know how stupid that sounds? When you have to admit that it's not a good reason, then we go on and we try it another way, and we try it another way. And then it's like, okay, tell us what God you believe in. Ram, the captain of fucking learning, believes in a personal God and believes it because we can understand our future, and sometimes we get dreams or deja vu and might be able to predict our future. Do you realize how silly that sounds? A personal God you believe in, and you're going to call in and suggest there's something wrong with my reasoning when you can't offer a reason, when you can't offer, shut the fuck up while I'm talking, so I'll mute you. You couldn't offer a reason. You couldn't offer a definition. You couldn't offer any explanation. We gave you multiple tries. And when it comes down to defining even what God you believe in, it's a personal God that you think is real because we can understand our future. And sometimes we get dreams of deja vu. Would you like to try again to actually define what it is that you believe and why you believe it and why you think somebody else should believe it?
Well, I think that you often get very confrontational in your dialogue. And you always...
So the answer is no, you're not going to do that.
So, Ram, I'm going to mute you again. Ram, I am giving you the opportunity in front of countless thousands of people who will watch this video to define what it is that you believe and why you think others should believe it too. And you are using that time to whine like a little bitch about whether or not I get confrontational when somebody calls in to say, my story is not convincing, I've clearly stopped learning, I'm in too much pain. Ram, I'm going to unmute you. When I do, I'd like for you to tell us a definition of the God that you believe in and why you think people should believe it. And believe me when I say that for today, this will be your last opportunity. So what God do you believe in and why should people believe it?
No, Matt, I'm not going to tell you. And
okay,
goodbye, jackass. Goodbye.
Well,
I'm not going to tell you.
Remember, he said it would take years to understand that this concept, which is always a weird thing for people to say in the first place, because it's sort of like, you're sort of suggesting then that even if your God exists, almost no one else should believe in him, because almost no one else will have taken years to understand a concept that you think is complex. And yet every time we dive into it, every glimpse of reasoning you have is shallow as fuck.
It's really weird. All we're trying to do is tell us what you believe and why. You couldn't do either one, and all you could do was attack me and start by attacking me. And you know what? It seems to be Attack Matt Day, so let's continue with that theme here, because we've got Justin in Pennsylvania who wants to call BS on my position of not following God if it were real. So, Justin, welcome to the show. Why don't you think that I'm honest?
Well, in your position, and I think it's just extremely easy to say, because you don't believe in God and you don't have that fear, that you would say, well, if God was real. Sorry, can you hear me? I wasn't sure if you can hear me.
Yeah, I can hear you.
Okay, I'm sorry. Yes, and your position is if he was real, I wouldn't worship him anyway. And I think that's just absolute BS, because if you knew for 100% fact that God could torture you for eternity, your whole entire mindset
it's a different proposition.
would just be different.
Hang on.
You know,
okay. No, hang on. Do you believe in Satan?
I do.
Does Satan know for sure that God exists?
He does.
Did Satan rebel against God and stop worshiping God?
Yes.
So it's possible for someone to know absolutely that God exists and still opt not to worship him, correct?
Yes.
Okay. So if God were real,
you're not Satan.
You don't know that. You're Matt. You don't know that. You don't know that I'm not Satan, but stop talking. I'm still asking questions.
Are you Satan?
I didn't say I was. What's wrong with you, Justin? Who hurt you?
Nothing's wrong.
Why won't you let somebody finish a sentence then? You're calling in.
I apologize.
You're calling. Shut up. You're calling in to say that you know my mind better than I do. But your reason is that you can't believe that someone wouldn't worship God out of fear, because you are afraid, because you have been made fearful by this God concept that you believe is real. So you don't believe anybody else couldn't. Do you realize that there are people who, despite the fact that they know there is a king or a government or whatever that will torture and punish them, still rebel against it? Do you realize that happens, that there are some people who aren't cowardly?
But not for eternity. Eternity is a whole different mindset.
No, sir. Whether or not a God exists is independent from whether or not it's deserving of worship. And my position is that nothing that demands worship could ever be deserving of worship. Would I pretend to worship? Well, why would I do that? Because if there's a God, it knows whether or not I'm sincere. So my position is that I'm always going to be intellectually honest. If there is a God, that God will know that. And if that God chooses to punish me, there's nothing I can do about it. But what kind of God would punish someone to force them to worship?
He's punishing you for not worshiping.
Yeah,
that's what God is doing. He's punishing you for eternity for not worshiping. And like I said, with the mindset that you have that he doesn't exist, it's extremely easy to say that.
Why would a good being punish someone for not worshiping?
Well, God has his reasons, and it doesn't seem logical to us. But God has his reasons.
Do you know God's reasons?
Like it,
do you know God's reasons?
Know God's reasons.
Then how do you know? Then Justin. Then how do you know that God's reasons are good and not evil?
It doesn't matter if they're good or evil. It's just what it is. It's not.
So basically, what you're saying,
Justin,
what you're saying is that you will worship any being, whether they're good or evil, as long as they're powerful enough to squash you.
No, not any being, God. As long as if he could torture me for eternity.
No, sir. You said it doesn't matter whether God is good or evil. So you will worship an evil God to save your ass.
The whole mindset would be, you wouldn't even be thinking of good and evil.
Are you saying, Justin, are you saying that you would worship an evil God to save you from punishment?
We wouldn't be able to say he's evil
Justin, are you saying, Justin, are you saying that you would worship a God that was evil to save yourself?
Where is the evil part? Like, how are you judging
Oh
evil?
my
Justin,
fucking
are you
God.
ever going to be fucking honest and answer the fucking question, you fucking coward? Are you saying that you would worship?
Still worship God if by your definition you saw he was evil? Yes,
Thank you.
I would still worship him.
Why was that so hard to get you to admit what was obvious from everything you've said?
Except in his answer, he still lied, because he then went, by your definition, so he's still not actually giving up that he is acknowledging an evil God.
Well, I'm sorry.
He hasn't answered
you
you.
have been. I'm sorry, Justin. When I asked who hurt you, it's the church. Whoever's convinced you that you need to be scared of a probably fictional being that you can't demonstrate exists, that you don't know whether or not they're real, and you don't know whether or not their intentions are in fact good or evil, because you have given up your brain. You have given up your humanity. You've sacrificed all of it on the altar of fear of being punished and sent to hell. That ain't me. Don't project your baggage onto me.
I mean, that's the ultimate end game, the fear, but that's not the reason that I believe in the first place.
Justin,
is the fear.
Don't project your fears onto me. It looks pathetic. You're the one that's the coward, not me.
I mean, like I said, it's easy for you to say that now because you don't believe.
It's easy for me, Justin. It's easy, Justin. Is it easy for you to say that I'm wrong now? Yes.
It is easy to say that you're wrong. Absolutely.
Yes, you know why? Because your God either doesn't exist or doesn't bother to demonstrate it. So it can't give me so much as a hangnail. So I can sit here and talk shit at your God, and all you're going to do is more and more.
Because you don't believe,
all you're going to do is be fucking muted while I'm talking. All you're going to do is sit there and get more and more upset because you know in your mind that your God either does not exist or does not care to do anything to me or for me or about me. And yet you are a frightened little child, terrified, and so much so that you can't even determine whether or not that God's intentions are good or evil. If a parent built a torture chamber in their basement and threatened to send their child to the basement if they didn't love them back, is that parent good or evil?
That parent is not God. God's on a different level than a parent.
No, sir. No, sir. That's not the way morality works. You are arguing for a might makes right. You are arguing that God, if a parent did what God, okay, let me try it this way. If a parent treated their child the way you think God treats us, would that parent be good or evil?
That parent would probably be evil.
Thank you. Goodbye.
No, wait, don't. Did you already do it?
Yeah, that was the whole plan.
I just wanted to hear why he believed in God.
Because he's afraid.
Yeah.
Because he's been in church. Because he went there and somebody scared him with the notion of hell. Well, let me tell you something. You don't get to say, here's morality and God's above it. And it's immoral to kick a puppy, but God can kick a puppy. It's immoral to drown everybody on the planet, but God can do it. It's immoral to threaten to torture your children from not loving them, but God can do it. When you set up a dynamic where the God character can do every abominable thing that you would object to from anyone else, how can you possibly say that God is good? It is the definition of evil.
Earlier, we had a theist from New Delhi who was phenomenally awful, and then another awful to defend, but not the concept, which is another one I saw the notes before the notes were changed by the screener, told the screener didn't want to actually debate if God exists, just that Matt was full of shit. Didn't tell the screener, put that before then getting screened. So I can't think of anything better than talking to another theist from New Delhi who looks like he will be quite a palate cleanser. So we're going to talk to Ishant. I hope I'm saying that right. Let me know if I'm not. But Ishant in New Delhi, you are on the line with Jimmy and Matt. And I have to ask, Ishant, because you're the second New Delhi caller, is our show randomly just going out more to New Delhi today? What's going on?
It's wild.
Okay, hi.
Hey.
No, I don't think it's just randomly going out. I just think it's coincidental maybe. Yeah, I called in last week too, but I was just a little late to the party. So,
cool. Well, go ahead. Give us your question.
Okay. So basically, I've been raised in a not so orthodox household. I've been a Hindu all my life. I've believed in probably all aspects of Hinduism. But growing up, reading a lot has been, made me question a lot of these things. And there are just a few aspects of Hinduism that are making me cling on to whatever there is left of it for me. One is the supernatural aspects, as in I've felt it personally. My grandfather expired, and I have felt his presence in my life. I think 3 or 4 days he passed away, and and I also wanted to know what's Matt's understanding of Hinduism, or say a very hugely diverse culture that Hinduism encompasses of.
I'll take a shot at question one if you want to take question two, Matt.
Yeah, go for it. Yeah, still
Ishan,
thinking.
I had a pretty similar experience to you after my own grandfather died. In fact, I would say that most of my family did, to some degree, have this concept of grandpa has gone from, and I don't mean this to sound like as an insult, but an old, weak, feeble, defeated person to now, he's evolved, basically. If anything, we're very sad he's died, and something about this is, even though we knew how miserable he was, we knew how much he hated that he couldn't walk, that he had to have his hygiene, we'll just put it this way, his hygiene maintained by other people. We knew he basically hated being alive at the points that he was alive, yet we still have these moments of extreme sadness when he died, and then we felt like he was a part of our lives. So you almost adopt him as he's, and this specific grandfather I'm talking about, there was already a sort of mythology to him in our family. He's like he was the Superman of the family that our dad always told stories of. And so we had that same experience of afterwards feeling like now he's basically up there, in there with us in our subconscious. And it may be that there are natural reasons for that when you are going through grief, when you're going through loss, and your brain is committing to your memory this person that you are considering all of the experiences you'll never have with them again on the basis of the experience you had with them in the past. It's easy to feel like when you grew up in a system that says when these people die, they start to look over you, to associate that with these feelings you have of just this strong memory and the strong longing and the strong missing of that person. But it doesn't actually mean that person, the spirit, the ghost was there. And it kind of sucks. It's part of this whole, we've been on the theme of recovering from religion for the last few days. That is a part of what can be traumatic about losing religion. Just the idea of, I'm going to lose the sense that this person I loved and revered so highly, in our case, it was a fantasy of this person, but this person I loved and revered so highly, I'm going to have to recognize isn't there. But you do get to take things like that and still say, but I do recognize that their memory is still there. I do get to recognize that I still had experiences with them. Nobody gets to take away the feelings of love or whatever reverence I have for that person. But in losing my faith, I'm going to have to acknowledge that I don't have a good reason to believe I'll ever see them again or commune with them again or anything. And so basically the short answer to your question, Nishant, is it feels very much that way. And it even feels mean to tell you, to disabuse you. I've used that word 3 times now today, but of the notion that that's what's happening. But there isn't actually a good reason to believe that feeling you had, that experience you had of the presence of your grandfather actually was your grandfather there, and not the presence of your memory and your longing and your missing of your grandfather.
Yeah, I mean, that could possibly be the reason.
Yeah.
And being from, studying science a lot, being an engineer right now, I think I've been super skeptic about these things. But some of these things still held me back. Also, when engaging in a dialogue with a lot of, say, contemporaries, a lot of questions pop up in favor of, Hinduism. If there is a religion, if it could be true, Hinduism could be true. Say, it being the oldest religion, some would say. Do you think it adds more credibility, or we have written accounts for Hinduism from 3500 BC? And does it mean...
Isham, first, I just want to add this note. I'm sure Matt has his own. You said the thing that I used to say as a Mormon, which is, there was a time, basically during my deconstruction phase. And by the way, I've heard tons of Mormons say this, where it's, I don't know for sure that it's true anymore, but if any religion is true, it's definitely Mormonism. So it's either all of them or Mormonism are. And then I had my own reasonings for, if God exists, he'd still be revealing himself to man. And Mormonism believes in modern day prophets that are literally communicating with God on whatever periodic basis needs be. The whole concept of like, it makes more logical sense, Mormonism, because why would God only be revealing to people in Israel and in the surrounding areas? Why wouldn't he also be revealing to the indigenous populations, specifically an indigenous population that I've made up in my head of the American continent? Why would Jesus only go to, again, that same area in the Middle East? Why wouldn't Jesus come to America, both alive and then during the period of time when he's dead? Why that makes way more, and you sort of do this sort of logical thing. So with you, it sounds like you've got this sort of deal of Hinduism has a historical root of much, much further back. It really doesn't add any credibility, as lots of religions have historical roots that go very far back. We've dismissed most of the other ones that are older than that, but that it has culturally maintained two things. One, no, that doesn't inherently mean it's more credible. And two, whether or not the Hinduism you see today would be even recognizable to the Hindus that were practicing Hinduism 3,500 years ago is very largely up for debate. Christianity, for example, looks nothing like the way Christianity used to be practiced. So those are my points in response to that challenge.
Okay, but I think you just took my one religion. If there is a religion, Hinduism could be the one. Really too seriously, but yeah. So, anyways, also Hinduism, the basic philosophy, or the ultimate true philosophy of Hinduism would say that it often describes God not as a personal deity, but as an impersonal absolute thing known as Brahman, which transcends all physical things and dualities. This view, I don't think, conflicts with natural laws, and the manifest universe or the physical universe is seen just as a spontaneous or a creative expression of this God. So considering this, how would you respond that atheism and theism are not just mutually exclusive, but rather two perspectives on the same reality? One focusing on the physical or the tangible parts, atheism, and the other on the transcendent and the supernatural or the immeasurable aspects.
The same way that even when a person goes all the way to deism, sorry, Matt, I haven't let Matt talk yet. Go ahead, Matt. You can have it.
No, I got 23 questions. I've been confused by this entire life. So first of all, whether or not something is compatible or incompatible with atheism, when you say like Brahman, the concept, you don't think it's in opposition to what, secular? But so Hinduism is a hot mess of a gazillion-1 beliefs that are impossible to pin down. Every Hindu village picks out their favorite, etc. So I don't have strong feelings on Hinduism, but you said at the start of this call that you felt the supernatural. And I want to know, how do you know that you felt something that was in fact supernatural?
I thought I saw a figure-like thing that represented my grandfather, but since he was not there with us anymore, I thought that was the supernatural.
Okay. how do you tell whether or not what you saw was in fact supernatural or not?
I perceived it as a supernatural thing. I woke up from sleep.
Okay. So is it possible? Is it possible for you to perceive something as supernatural when it's not?
Yes.
Then how do you tell that what you perceived was in fact supernatural?
I don't think I can.
Okay. Then if you don't think you can, maybe you shouldn't be claiming that you experienced something supernatural, and instead you should be saying something like, I experienced something that I can't explain that I suspect might be supernatural. Because when you say you felt the supernatural, you're making a claim about what actually is. So if all you can say is that you experienced something that was unusual, that you can't think of an explanation other than supernatural, cool. That's happened to a lot of people. Until we can actually demonstrate what it is, we can't be justified in believing that we know what it is.
Yeah, agreed. I mean, we don't disagree on this point.
Yeah. So, but on the concept of Brahman, as just Brahman being whatever the ultimate is, it's like it's not defined, right? It's whatever the ultimate is. If there is any ultimate, that's Brahman, is my understanding. I could be way wrong.
Yep.
But is Brahman necessarily conscious?
I would say yes. Yep.
Okay. On what grounds do you conclude that it's necessarily conscious, like it's a thinking agent?
I think it was a thinking agent when he was part of the process where he was creating the universe, or whatever it encompasses, or the manifests of it. But since then, it has stopped interfering in whatever. I mean, he was the starting agent.
This is so strange because you have now reached a conclusion that Brahman was, once upon a time, at the point where it created everything, a conscious thinking agent. And since then, something has changed to where it's not a conscious thinking agent?
I mean, he does not interfere in the actual physical universe anymore.
Well,
that's what
whether or not it interacts with the universe is completely different. So what you're saying is, for the entirety of your life and of the lives of everybody that you've known, and for the entirety of time that you can investigate, Brahman has not interacted with the world in any detectable way.
Yep.
Okay. Imagine something that hasn't interacted with the world in any detectable way. What reason could anyone possibly have for concluding that it exists? You would be claiming to detect the undetectable.
Yeah. I mean, just attributing what we don't know about the beginning of the universe or how it started, and just giving God the credit or Brahman the credit. I think it makes a little more sense than, or maybe it's just the best possible explanation for it.
How is a being outside of the limits of space and time a better explanation for the origin of space and time than saying we don't know?
Okay, this is really thought-provoking, and I could go back to saying this to someone. We are talking about God of the gaps here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, Ashant, the simpler version of that question is no answer, which is better, an answer or no answer? Any answer, I guess, would be better than an. Any answer or no answer. Which one's better?
Yeah, a correct answer or a no answer, I would say.
No, not correct. But the options are any. Sorry, I fucked it up in the beginning. The options are any answer or no answer. Which one's better? So the idea would be,
No.
let's say you and I don't know the answer to 5 + 5, and I tell you I have an answer, and I'm going with any answer that's not justified. So I'm telling you ice cream is the answer to 5 + 5. Would it be better there when you and I don't know the answer to give no answer, or would any answer filled in after 5 + 5 be better than leaving the answer blank?
Yeah, let's leave the answer blank.
Right.
Yeah.
Matt and I would like to also leave the answer blank. Go ahead, Matt.
Yeah, no. And it's, if you think about it, and I get that what's happening here is tradition and you're not making a statement, but on a couple of occasions, you referred to Brahma as he. I get it that is tradition, but what it does is it conveys information that not only prioritizes a distinctively male perspective. So you've got a concept that you can't demonstrate, that you can't investigate, that you think is a thinking agent without any justification, and you also refer to it as he, which personalizes it and narrows down what type of person it can be. And all of this because, and by the way, Hinduism gets closer to the actual age of the universe than any religion I'm aware of. It's like, what, a 13 billion year cycle, and we're at, what, 13.7?
Yep.
So cool. That's neat. But at the end of the day, all we're doing is looking and saying, hey, why is there something rather than nothing? And I'm saying, I don't know. And Jimmy's saying, I don't know. We suspect that nothing is impossible. Like it would be impossible to have a nothing, because then it becomes something. And so the best explanation for why there's something rather than nothing is because there couldn't be a nothing. But you are saying there's a reason there's something rather than nothing is because there's this thinking agent that I'm going to give a label and associate a gender to, who created everything and then stopped interacting in any detectable way. And that's not too far removed from saying, why is this tree in my backyard? And the answer is a group of pixies came out while I was sleeping and planted this tree in the back of my yard, and then they vanished, leaving no trace of their existence, and they don't interact in any detectable way. But I'm confident that that tree was planted by pixies. That is the type of thing that I'm trying to avoid. It's the reason why I advocate for skepticism and critical thinking, in that it is better to say, I don't know, or to leave the answer blank and continue looking for a potential right answer, than it is to just fill it in with whatever we kind of assume. Because throughout history, every time someone has proposed something supernatural as an explanation for any observed phenomena or event, whenever we've found out what the actual cause was, it's never, ever, ever been supernatural. Now, there are things where we still don't know the cause, and perhaps they're supernatural. Perhaps there's some god or being, but we need actual evidence for that. It's a mistake to say, I don't know, so I'm going to go ahead and go with Brahma or, Yahweh or whoever.
Yeah, and Ashant, I think, and especially since it sounds like you're deconstructing, I don't think you're going to have a problem with this conclusion of that proposition. When we go back to the 5 + 5 metaphor, the other issue is people went and, somebody has said ice cream, and then people have fought wars and killed each other over which flavor of ice cream. And then somebody else has said 5 + 5 is elephant, 5 + 5 is frog, 5 + 5 is chair, 5 + 5 is, and they're killing each other over these things. And then in a lot of places and times, they've actually said, if you say you don't know or you don't accept chair, we won't even allow you to exist and live for just wanting to say, I'm not convinced it's chair. I'm not convinced it's elephant. I'm not convinced it's frog. And so not only are we going to advocate for I don't know, we can point to very real failings of humanity fighting over the answers that they are saying is the truth when they should be saying, I don't know. And that would be more of the almost the strong, approaching strong atheism side of wanting to take a harder stance against answering the question wrongly rather than just going with ice cream. By the way, I super want some ice cream now, but that's unrelated.
After it's over, if you want to go to dinner, we could go to dinner and get some ice cream.
I wish my health would allow me to right now, but that's not in the cards today.
Yeah, no
So I'm invited too?
If you can get to Austin from New Delhi by the time dinner gets around, not only can you go eat ice cream with me, but you might convince me that there's a good case for the supernatural, because that's an impressive journey
That's
in
fast.
just an hour or so.
Yeah.
It is. I'm starting to pack my bags.
Good enough.
Sweet.
Power up the power up the teleporter now, because that's going to take a lot of nuclear charge or something. Ashanta, I think we've given you a lot to think about. If you have another question or anything to go on, we do have a bunch of other calls lined up that we want to get to here. But I think we've given you quite a bit to think about. Anything left before we let you go?
No, I would. I think Matt and even you have both studied a lot about I think the monotheism religions, and just listening a lot from you guys, I would like to hear more about what Hinduism is offering or how it could be wrong, or that's it.
Yeah, Ashant, I'll tell you, as far as my the future of the line goes, if I had unlimited funds, there would be a channel, The Line India, and it would take on Hinduism and Islam all day. Like you wouldn't only be seeing, not only, but here we get a lot of callers who are Christians because we're in America, and that's what Christianity is. We are prepared to take on virtually any theistic claim as long as the person's willing to present it. But I do think, obviously, there are advantages to specifically debunking and responding to specific religious claims. And I hope one day, we get that billionaire benefactor who's like, I've realized the error of my ways. Here's all my billions of dollars. Now bring the line to every country that'll allow it to be there. We'll do it. I would love to have The Line India one day.
Yeah, I'll do
you've
7 shows a week if I could.
Hell yeah.
Yeah, you've got to get on the trend track. Everybody's opening channels in India.
Yeah, I've heard you can do very well in India, because isn't the third largest YouTube channel in the world? I don't remember what it's called, but
I think it's the first one. But anyways, a huge internet usage here. So yeah,
cool.
Around 700 million people, something. So yeah. What a huge audience.
Awesome. Well, thanks a lot for the call and the conversation. I appreciate it. It's nice to talk to questioning theists who will actually answer a question when asked. It's nice. Yep. And even if you stay a Hindu forever, that's fine. As a matter of fact, when I was at the Secular Student Alliance conference this past weekend, I sat down with a woman who was raised Hindu and is just finding her way out as well. And we talked about the difficulties of pinning down aspects of Hinduism. And maybe if there was some sort of God being that created everything and then stopped interacting, maybe that was the mistake. Maybe they should have kept interacting and things wouldn't be so confusing.
Yeah, we'll still get ice cream with you.
Great. But I think some parts of Hinduism that have really, have been more of part of life for me than just a deity itself, is more of the great traditions or the festivals we have, and just spending time with the family. And it has the good parts, but definitely not everything is great.
I've been to a few American versions of, especially like the color festivals and stuff. They are awesome. I agree that culturally there are very cool things that are fun to explore about Hinduism. But yeah, well, it was awesome talking to you, Ashant.
Yep, bye.
Have a good one. I think think I was right. I think that was a palate cleanser. You got a preference on, we've got a few theists and a few atheists waiting to chat. You got a preference on who we go next?
Oh, I sent you a message in vMix. Sorry. I know we don't use it often enough, but.
And I especially don't. Let me pull that up. Okay, cool. We're going to talk to Innocent in, I don't know how to actually say that. I've only seen the name of your area written. So is it Malawi? Malawi. Awesome. Well, Innocent, you're on the line with Jimmy and Matt.
Okay. So after speaking to the course trainer, my question has changed a little.
Hey, can we do something about your audio quality here? Because not only is there a buzzing noise that seems to try to compete with you, you are also very quiet.
Okay.
Are we able to change your microphone, take it off speakerphone if that's what you're doing? What can we do here?
Okay. So am I sounding okay now?
There's still the buzz, but you're a little louder at least, so we'll give it a try. But I'm going to guess that we're going to want to take your question. Let's just try, but I'm also hearing myself buzz back as an echo buzz. So far it's very bad. We'll do this as long as we can. Go ahead.
Okay. So when I look at the atheist community and the apologist community, I see that they are both using leading questions to get to a point. But yet the atheist community accused the apologist of using dishonest tactics when you are both using the Socratic method to lead to a conclusion.
I'm confused because it sounded like you said we're using leading questions and that we accuse the apologists of dishonest tactics when we're both using the Socratic method, but we're not both using Socratic method, and Socratic method isn't necessarily anything to do with leading questions. So the questions that I'm most frequently asked here on the show, as you've seen from just today, is to get someone to tell me what they believe and why they believe it and why other people should believe it. And when they tell me what they believe, then the questions begin to move towards how do we demonstrate that that's true? So what leading question am I, or dishonest tactic, am I involved in?
So maybe I didn't phrase that well. It's when you're asking someone a question, you give them the option of yes or no. The answer that
sometimes
then you move on to the next question.
Sometimes
isn't yes. So to me, that seems like you are making someone go to a certain conclusion, like that they are not going there.
Innocent. If it's a yes or no question, when I'm saying answer yes or no, I'm trying to get an answer to that question instead of having them go off on a tangent that's irrelevant. So, like for example, you believe in a God, right?
Yes.
Which God?
That's a bit complicated because lately my beliefs
hang on. I'm going to let you answer. I just want you to take note that all I did was not ask a leading question. I just asked you to tell me what you believed, and the answer is it's complicated. So go ahead, tell me what it is, but there was nothing leading about that question. It was just, I want you to tell me what you believe because I need you to define something in order for me to address it. So why is it complicated and what do you believe?
Okay, because when I hear the arguments for God, I don't particularly find them convincing. But if you were to do a lie detector test on me and ask me, do I believe in God? Saying yes would show that I'm telling the truth. Like, when I look into my heart, I believe in God. But when I hear the arguments, I'm not convinced. So I'm confused as well where I actually stand.
Innocent. What I asked you
yes.
was, which God do you believe in? And your answer was, if you looked at the arguments of God, you don't find them convincing, but if we gave you a lie detector, it would show that you believe in God, because when you look into your heart, you believe in God. None of those are in any way at all an answer to the question, which God do you believe in? I'm asking you to define the God that you believe in. And everything that you said was just you saying, I believe. If you gave me a lie detector, I believe. Okay, fine. I don't doubt that you believe. I'm asking, which God do you believe in?
Here's the thing. I'm not really good at articulating my beliefs. So on this specific call, I was not calling to explain. I need time to articulate them.
Yeah, Innocent, I can't do this much longer. This is, I hear this louder than anybody else, and it's painful because I have to monitor it. But Innocent, you're actually kind of demonstrating the point in a way, and in that way, it is useful when you're discussing this thing with using these styles of Socratic questioning and such. We have been 3 minutes on just trying to get the answer to, when you say I believe in God, what does that word God mean in that sentence? And we haven't been able to get there. The method of questioning we use is because this isn't our first day. And if people would engage the questions accurately and honestly and just answer the questions as they stand, it is entirely more efficient. So there are times where I understand you don't want to say yes or no. It's not as though you're never going to be given an opportunity to clarify. But if we're doing a yes or no line of questioning, we need to get through the yes or no path. And in fact, most of the time, if you just answer yes or no, your opportunity to clarify may come in the yes or no's which follow even before we then need to give you a moment to offer any clarification. But they are simple yes or no propositions, and they are entirely more efficient than a pedantic conversation about, in my heart, I believe in God, but it's not one of these gods or what. You're telling us about the God you don't believe in, but you haven't told us about the God you do believe in. I'm going to give you one more opportunity here, but legitimately, I just have audio fixations, and I can't leave you in my ears much longer, and that's the reason why it's not going to go much longer.
Well, what Innocent said is that he's not prepared. You think what?
Here's the thing. I'm trying to sort out my beliefs. So when I'm hearing the atheists and the apologists, I find them both convincing. So I'm trying to get both views, like what's the difference in the way apologists approach this and in the way atheists approach this.
Stop. There is no one way that atheists approach this. Jimmy does things slightly different from me. We're pretty similar on a good chunk of this. But at the end of the day, if we're going to have a conversation about your God belief and you can't tell us anything about your God, that's not a failing on our ability to ask questions. That's a failing on your ability to answer them. You've got to come up and have an understanding of what it is that you believe and why you think people should share that belief. And when you have those explanations, then you'll be able to answer the questions. It's not a trick question to say, which God are you talking about?
Yeah, before I unmute you again, because I've been toggling on the board here for my own stuff, I also want to say the argument that you're actually making at the core from the beginning to now, and I think I just realized it's the one you're making, is you theists, or you atheists, Jesus Christ, I'm clearly tired. You atheists are using this tool. But from my perception, and let's just grant you your perception is right, the apologists are using that tool also. And the right person and the wrong person couldn't be using the same tool. Now, my argument would be that apologists do try to do leading questions and sometimes even try to go with Socratic questioning and do so dishonestly. The use of the tool itself, that we use the tool, doesn't mean that we're both using it well, that we're both using it correctly. And so it wouldn't be right to say apologists use this tool, and if they're wrong, why do you use that tool? It would be as significant as saying apologists defend it in English and you defend it in English. So if they're wrong and they're defending it in English, then you're wrong because you're defending it in English. I don't know what fallacy that is off the top of my head, but it's definitely a fallacy.
Thanks for clarifying, because this is something I was confused about, genuinely confused.
Good. I hope that last thing, like I said, it took me a minute again, because I've been fixating on the audio to realize what argument you were even making. Does that clear that argument up for you?
Yeah.
Excellent.
You hit the nail on the head, because, I was just really confused, and there are no atheists for me to talk to in my country.
Sure.
I mean, there are, but it's just a minuscule amount, so yeah.
And so we're very glad you're here, Malawi, despite the fact, Innocent from Malawi. We're very glad you're here and that your country has found our content. I am so sorry, but I just, I'm going to let you give your last words, but I can't do the buzz any longer.
Yep.
Okay.
Go ahead. Last words from you, Innocent.
So I would try to articulate what I believe and call it next time, but the time zone, well, I'll see what I can do.
Sure. We're earlier on Sundays. We're also earlier on Thursdays, but that's a show directly for trans rights. But you know, we started an hour and a half ago, whatever that is in your time zone. So, and then we're a little bit later most of the other days of the week. We start 4 hours later. Matt does a show every Wednesday. I often pop in on Fridays around that time as well. So whichever one works with you.
Wow.
Thanks, Innocent.
It's like a low voltage hum that is just so rough.
You're hearing it post filtering. I'm hearing it raw. I filtered it out. It was at least 3 times worse for me, and that's why I'm sitting here going, I can't do this any longer.
That's amazing.
Yeah. But super cool call. Absolutely. And we'll try to retreat that audio when we repost it as a clip, because I enjoyed talking to Innocent, and I hope Innocent can maybe try a different way of calling in next time, if possible. But yeah.
I think line 8 or 4, the web caller from Israel, I think they've been on hold for like an hour, and I think we can handle this really quickly.
Yep, sure. A lot of international calls today, and I am freaking loving it. So I'm going to go with Eitan from Israel. Awesome. You're on with
Says
Jimmy.
You would like to correct me on something about saying Israel is about 50% atheist, but if I said it was 50% atheist, then I misspoke, because I have repeatedly been referencing a 2011 study that showed that secular Jews make up about 41% of Israel, at least when that study was done in 2011. I haven't seen updated statistics. So
there's a problem. There's 2 problems here. First is I appreciate you correcting, because I do recall you once saying that it's about 40 to 50% atheist. First, it's a problem of translation of the Hebrew word for secular, which all Jews, you don't get to not call yourself a Jew if you're born Jewish. Even if you don't believe in God, they still call you secular. But there's also a lot of Jewish people who are secular who do believe in God. That's the first problem. There's there's a problem with translation there. The second problem is that in the English pages of demographics of Israel, the 40 to 50% secular discounts the non-Jewish population of Israel, which is about 20 to 30% of Israel. So that's the bigger problem, because it really discounts minorities and all the Arabs and Palestinians and non-Jewish people who live in Israel.
Okay. My study from 2011 may or may not do that, but it's from the Central Bureau of Statistics, an abstract of Israel from 2011. But okay, I don't care what the number is. I'm not trying to misrepresent anybody, but to note that secular Jews in Israel make up 40% or so, depending, is just referencing a statistic? What difference does it make?
It makes a difference mostly because I think in my mind, when you mention it, it paints a picture of Israel as a atheist-friendly country, and it's not that. It's very much not welcoming. In my service in the mandatory army, I've been, I can find the word, bullied for not believing in God.
Sure.
Like, even if by people who are traditional. I've made my dad cry several times. The number, according to, there are not a lot of atheist organizations in Israel, and the number, according to a study that one of the organizations did in 2019, is closer to 9% atheist in Israel.
Sure. But all right. So at no point, I've only been to Israel, I think twice. At no point was I trying to say that Israel is a great atheist mecca, a welcoming atheist state. No, Israel has a state religion.
Yeah.
So all I was ever talking about was citing a study. That's it.
Yeah.
But I have one question, because something was said and I've been I thought it would be answered. You said that there are secular Jews who do believe in God. Based on what you said before, are you saying that if a person, say, was born Jewish, doesn't actually believe in Judaism, but does believe in another religion, like say they became Christian or Muslim, is that who you were saying is still referred to as a secular Jew? Because I don't understand this sentence. There are secular Jews who believe in God.
Secular. It's because the word in Hebrew for secular doesn't mean no religion or doesn't believe in God. It simply means that you are not a Haredi or like not a Hasidi. It means that.
I don't know the word you just used. It means not solid.
So it means that you are, despite your religion, you are in favor of secular government and secular solutions to problems.
Okay, got it.
That's my understanding. Eitan can correct me if I'm wrong.
Yeah.
Most that's I can only correct it with my personal experience. Most secular people in Israel they would be religious, and they do traditionals. They wear the yarmulke. They believe in God. They just are not. They don't. It just means that they don't do the mitzvot.
Except that I just found a Gallup study from 2015 that said 65% of Israelis say they are either not religious or convinced atheists. That's a 2015 Gallup study. So while they are Jewish by heritage, 65% of Israelis say they are either not religious or convinced atheists.
Yeah, I see that study also. There's a lot of different studies from 2019 to 2018 and 90, and to the
no offense, because we're going to have to move on. But I've now found two studies, one from 2011 that says 41% plus are secular, and one from 2015 that says 65% identify as not religious or expressly atheist. And so it sounds like you're calling to correct me based on your personal experience when I'm citing the best studies that I had access to.
Yeah, I can cite studies as well.
Then let's just stick a pin in it
on the spot.
Then let's just stick a pin in it.
Can I email you about?
What do you have a study that's going to trump the Gallup study I just referenced?
Yeah, absolutely.
Sure.
Yeah,
Send it.
Just have to do more work in translating.
Send it, and then you can go to the 25 other websites that talk, including the Wikipedia with references that talk about religious self-identification in Israel, and correct them too.
Yeah, I would if I knew how to.
Because if it says that 75% of Israelis are Jewish and 65% of them are either not religious or are not convinced atheists, then they're talking about the cultural heritage of Jewish and not the religious. At 2009, 42% of Israeli Jews identified themselves as secular. I'm finding study after study after study just with a quick Google search. So I'm not saying it's an atheist-friendly place, and I'm not discounting your personal experience, but your personal experience doesn't trump the actual data.
No, I understand. There's few problems in translation in the religion, in the demographics of Israel, religion in Israel page in Wikipedia as well.
Hey, Tom, let's just stick it where we said we're
It's
going to
not
stick
Wikipedia. Wikipedia is not Gallup. If you have a problem with Gallup that has to do with translations, go to Gallup.
Yeah. Send us whatever you want to send, and let's just leave it there. This conversation has become pointless.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Eitan.
Yep. All right.
You can just pick whichever one you like. The new button is, I assume you figured it out, but host room with live they've added a screen button to hosting for some reason. And that's what threw me off earlier. I don't know if that happened.
I just have talk and drop, but.
Oh, I've got both. That's so weird.
Yeah, I have talk and drop, then I have the mute, return and queue normal. Eli in Texas, no pronouns given, has a question for me and Jimmy. So it's Eli, is that correct?
Yeah.
Awesome. Welcome to the show. How are you?
Good. You?
I'm all right.
I'm going to tell you I'm good, but I think I'll be better if you speak up. If you've only said a couple of words, but they've been muted.
Oh, okay. Sorry. Is that better?
Sure.
We'll go with it.
My question was, who was Jesus? Like, from your all's perspectives.
I don't have enough information to tell you. I can't even tell you that he was, let alone who or what he was. But that said, because we can't we can't verify any part of his story that is necessarily specific to him. And that's why there are people who are mythicists who don't think that Jesus existed at all. I'm fine with the idea that there was probably somebody that the stories are painted to, but apart from possibly being a traveling preacher that some people admired, I can't go further than that.
Yeah. I mean, certainly a historical figure, but with the level to which you adopt whether someone's a historical figure or not isn't the same as the burden of proof in science. That. Yeah,
I can't confirm he didn't exist either, but right. I would be very reluctant to say yes, I'm confident he existed. It's just I can't prove that he did or didn't.
But
the only thing we know about him comes from translations of copies of copies of oral traditions. And while I will, as I did in a recent debate, freely acknowledge that my modern copy of the Bible is highly accurate to the oldest manuscripts that we have and is likely accurate in content to what the originals were, that doesn't tell us whether or not the originals were true. So I have no idea who the biblical Jesus was.
Who do you think he was, Eli?
I think he was the Christ, the Son of God.
Why is that?
Well, it's I know that there's various arguments, like you mentioned, lacking of evidence and such, but the only evidence that we have is the Bible itself.
Mm-hmm.
The Bible is the testimony of the apostles.
Okay, so Bible's a book. It speaks of Jesus, and you say the evidence is the book. What is the evidence that the book is true?
The evidence is in terms of the authors of the Bible. They actually, like Peter, reference himself in 1 Peter and 2 Peter, where he says Peter, an apostle of Christ. And then I think in 2 Peter 16, it says, for we did not follow cunningly devised fables that, they didn't follow.
So the evidence that the book is true is contained within the book?
Yeah, like Peter's testifying his witness to Christ.
Okay, so if I write a book and I say, I, Jimmy Snow, say this book is true, that's evidence that my book is true? No.
Well,
the answer is no.
It's like the only thing is this, where the Christ, well, it's the Messiah. He was
okay. No, Eli, you don't get to do that. I asked a question. If I write a book, call it the Book of Jimmy Snow, or the book of whatever else, and one of the books is I say Jimmy Snow, this is true. This is my testament that this book is true. And on Thursday, I interacted with the Spider-Man, and that is true because I said it's true. Is the book true because I said it is true within the book, which is claiming to be true?
It can be.
No, that's not the question. Is it true because I said it was true?
It depends on the
No, it doesn't.
It's true.
The question is it true because I said it was true? If the answer is possible that it is not true, even if I say it's true, then the answer to the question is it true? If I say it's true, is no, because I can lie. In fact, I can change my name. I did. My name isn't Jimmy Snow, not legally. It socially and in every meaningful way is, but I can lie about who I am. I can lie about who the author of that section is. So a book is not true just because one of the authors within the book testifies that it is true. Correct?
Yes, and
thank you.
Yeah, it just depended
also,
on if they were lying or telling the truth.
Well, yeah, and so the issue is, number one, how do we tell whether they're lying or telling the truth? But you've already kind of stepped in it a little bit, because First Peter, while it claims to be written by Peter, that authorship is in question, and have led most scholars to conclude that it wasn't written by Peter. So we don't have any way of confirming that it was written by Peter. The Gospels, by the way, are anonymous. We don't have any autographs. We don't necessarily know who wrote them. We have good reason to think that Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John were names that were attributed by the church, and that they weren't actually written by apostles. But we have something similar for First Peter. And so if you think that the first epistle of Peter was written by Peter, how do you demonstrate that?
It's kind of the entire New Testament is interwoven with the eyewitness testimonies of each of the apostles testifying to each other. Like in the book of Acts, it makes reference from
that has nothing to do with my question. My question is, how do you demonstrate who actually wrote First Peter?
Peter. Like, besides, like, I know that people can go under an alias and say that, oh, I'm Peter. But when I question, why would somebody fabricate such a grand fable?
Power, money, take your pick.
No. So here's the problem. Nobody's saying that the author fabricated a fable, so that line of argument is out. But what we are saying is that the experts look at First Peter and are not convinced that it was necessarily written by Peter, but you are. So what evidence and methodology do you have to trump the experts to reach the conclusion that First Peter was actually written by Peter?
Well, I think that the experts don't have evidence either. It's like they have no claim besides their own word beyond what it is.
So you think that the New Testament scholars, who are experts in the original language, in literature, in tracing and verifying literature, who have more information, more knowledge, and more understanding than you do, are just pulling stuff out of their ass, but you got it right?
I think that in terms of truth, they are kind of forcing their own perspective or looking for perspectives that
So basically, you are an uninformed conspiracy theorist who are willing to dismiss the actual experts in favor of your assumption that these New Testament scholars most of whom are Christians and would benefit from confirming this, are being dishonest and biased, but you got the authorship right.
Right, which is exciting, Eli, because that means you think you have a more reliable method to getting to truth than scholarship would have. So let's talk about that method. How did you get you? Right. We need your method now, so that we can educate these so-called experts, because you have managed to crack this and demonstrate something that the experts can't. So what's your methodology, and what evidence do you have to support it?
Okay, it's like, again, well, they're all interwoven. Like Paul testifies of Peter, and Peter testifies
I'm asking about First Peter. I'm asking about First Peter and what evidence and methodology you have that overturns the expert opinion. Well, I look forward to your Nobel Prize and your Templeton Prize. I look forward to seeing you on the cover of magazines that are devoted to New Testament scholarship with your methodology to demonstrate it. Right now, you're like one of those people who thinks the scientists are just making up evolution, but you managed to sort it out. So congratulations on having an absolutely stunning amount of self-confidence despite not knowing or understanding the subject. That's amazing. Congrats.
Eli, can I just ask you directly, is the main reason you believe in God and the Bible faith?
No. It's actually...
So you think that you have external reasons, real objective reality reasons that conflict with Christian scholarship, largely staffed by Christians, and that your reasoning is a direct good reason to believe, and it's gone undiscovered by anybody but you.
Well, let me just reiterate what I said. Faith is the substance of things hoped for, and I think in terms of beliefs,
what's the rest of that verse?
Yeah,
if you're going to quote Hebrews 11:1, quote the whole damn thing.
Right.
I don't know at all. Sorry.
What does it? Did you even know it was Hebrews 11:1 or?
No, I just kind of remember the.
Which of the two of us? Which of the two of us do you think knows the Bible better overall?
I can say that I wouldn't know, but I can suspect that you know some parts of the Bible you just don't believe it.
Yeah, so you don't know which one of us knows the Bible better, but you know that you have better scholarship on the authorship of First Peter than the New Testament scholars. That's interesting.
All right, so Eli, we already debunked the book says it's true, so it's true. Then you went with, well, the book is interwoven with accounts, and you're ignoring the contradiction. It's a lot to say that, but you're going with interwoven. So then you're going with, but the book says it's true in multiple parts and points to other parts of the book and says that part of the book's true and that part of the book is true. And you're willing to have a conspiracy regarding scholarship, but not a conspiracy regarding authorship, which is funny to me. But the fact of the matter is that the first thing debunks the book saying it's true doesn't make it true. The book saying it's true in multiple parts doesn't make it true. So let's leave both of those. We're not going to use those examples. That isn't even the question. That wasn't even the question. The question is, what demonstrates the authorship of First Peter? And you said that the narrative is interwoven, but the narrative doesn't demonstrate authorship. That's my problem, is that you are supremely confident in authorship and not only don't seem to have a methodology, but when asked to present a methodology that is insufficient to the task. A methodology, that's like saying, how do I know that J.R.R. Tolkien wrote The Hobbit? And your answer is, because there are parts of The Hobbit where the story is interwoven and intermeshed with the Silmarillion. Yeah, but that's not the question. The question is, how do we know J.R.R. Tolkien wrote it? Well, there's this story that's intermeshed with the Lord of the Rings series. Yes, but the question is, how do we know
J.R.R. Tolkien wrote it. You aren't able to answer the question that's being asked. You're answering some different question. And then in Hebrews 11:1, which you started to quote, that faith is the substance of things hoped for, the evidence of things unseen. But that definition of faith, which, by the way, seems to align well with my own, faith is the excuse people give for believing something when they don't have a good reason. Because if you have a good reason and I say, why do you believe? You give me the good reason. If you don't have a good reason, then you make appeals to faith. You said a while ago that the only evidence we have is from the Bible. And so, what evidence from the Bible demonstrates that 1 Peter was written by Peter the Apostle?
Okay. Can we go a little bit? Well, okay. I'll admit this, that I understand and I accept that we have to, by faith, accept that Peter wrote the gospel.
No, we don't.
We don't even have to do that.
No, we don't. No, we don't. And it's not the gospel of Peter. There is no, well, there isn't in the Bible a gospel of Peter, and we don't have to take it on faith. What we can say is we don't know who the author is. And here's the thing. Let's imagine that 1 Peter was written by Peter. Does that mean that the content of it is more likely to be true?
That's what I was getting to. Not even just that. Let's say every book, we figured out every author. Let's say we could figure out that all 12 apostles wrote in the New Testament, and that it's somewhere in the New Testament they all pointed to every other one and said the story the other apostles said was true. Would that mean the book was true?
It can be.
No, we already went through this. If the answer is possibly no, the whole answer is no. It doesn't mean the book is untrue. It means it is not true just by virtue of multiple authors saying it is true. The answer to the question is no.
The question that Jimmy's asking there is, what methodology can you provide to show that the story in the book is true? It can't just be that it's got consistency with a variety of different writers. There has to be some external evidence that shows that Jesus existed, performed miracles, healed people, died, and was resurrected and ascended to heaven as a justification or as an atonement for our sins. Those are the critical elements. What evidence do you have from outside the Bible that any of those things are true? You don't have to answer because you already said we don't have any evidence from outside the Bible. That the Bible's all the evidence we have. So you have nothing you can point to outside the Bible, which means you can never establish the truth of the book if you're not able to point to something outside of the book.
When it comes to truth, there is reflection of it in the world. But as you mentioned, there's various things that we do have to receive by faith.
No. You don't have to go further than that.
You're not listening. You're not listening or thinking.
Give us the reflection in the world.
I'm just going to let Jimmy deal with it.
What's one of the reflections of the truth of the Bible in the world?
What is the reflection?
You just said there are reflections of truths. So give me one of them. Go ahead. I'm going to warn you, other holy books exist. And the moment that you give an example, I'm going to figure out if you can just change the religion and that makes another religion true. I'm going to tell you the tactic I'm queuing up to embarrass you with.
Like, I don't like using this example, but it's like, there is brimstone found in Sodom and Gomorrah where the Dead Sea waters have receded.
Oh my God!
The water preserved the brimstone that fell in the water.
Mm-hmm.
And
in the Book of Mormon, there are rivers the exact same shape described in the Book of Mormon. In fact, some of them have names that are barely a couple letters off, and yet somehow we in English almost guessed the perfectly correct name. Is that proof the Book of Mormon is true? I told you the fucking thing I was going to do with your example, and you did it anyway. So Eli, I will see you at Mormon church this Sunday. Do you have a good evidence, or are we moving on?
Mormonism is, we would have to take it by matters of
Eli, do you really think you're going to win this by now trying to take on if you can debunk Mormonism?
Yeah.
No.
Like,
okay. Eli, at this point, I just feel bad. It's too easy. And I feel like I'm beating up on somebody who's not capable of working in this conversation. So I'm going to give you one more chance. A good evidence that the Bible is true, because your reflections thing was basically dog shit. And by the way, if you're going to go with those reflections, but also ignore all of the things like how the story of Moses is historically impossible, you know, I'm not very compelled by it. So anyway, go ahead and give us a good evidence. Otherwise, it's done. I just can't anymore.
I just want to say that Jesus exists.
Yeah, well, you're wrong.
He loves you all.
Okay. Yeah, I'm not letting you finish by bearing your fucking testimony. How are you I told you what I was going to do, and you just walked in. It's like saying, hey, if you walk through this door, I'm going to punch you in the face. And you skipped through it. You thought skipping might be a loophole because I said walked, but I still punched you in the face. What the fuck? Oh, do you have a preference of the couple remaining calls?
No, I genuinely, I don't. And
now,
I just, it's very frustrating to be in this position where somebody comes in and just makes one unfounded assertion after another, right down to finding the brimstone of Sodom and Gomorrah when we have no clue. I'm just not even going to do it. I can't.
I even gave him the benefit of the doubt that it is actually the Sodom and Gomorrah brimstone. I told him what I was going to do with whatever his evidence of truth was, and he just did it anyway. I just don't know. I'm interested actually to hear you answer this question. Go ahead.
Well, this is part of the problem with someone like Eli, is that he accepts the story is true. Then he accepts that what he's been told about authorship is true. Then he accepts what he heard from some shitty biblical archaeologist that we found brimstone from Sodom and Gomorrah. We don't even know where Sodom and Gomorrah are or were, or that they were. They are legendary cities, and we have not been able to locate where the hell they are. And yet this reminds me so much of something that happened years ago that Tracy Harris pointed out, which is there's no good reason to think that Bigfoot exists. And yet there seem to be people speculating on Bigfoot mating procedures and their social procedures and their family structure. And just like our Hindu caller from earlier, we have no reason and no way to investigate whether or not Brahman exists. And yet somehow we're convinced that he was real and an agent and he created everything, and then he stopped interacting with it. This is the pattern over and over again. Credulous individuals who are wonderful people and well-meaning buy into something, and then because they've got a sunk cost into that, just start accepting anything and everything. Eli is happy to come on here and pretend that he knows more and has a better methodology, despite never being able to demonstrate it, about how to confirm the authorship of a book. And when asked, he can't even give an answer that has anything to do with the authorship of the book, and then continues on down by, well, we found brimstone from Sodom and Gomorrah. No, we fucking didn't. And we didn't find Noah's Ark, and we didn't find fragments of the cross. We haven't found any of the things that people are shoveling out to you believers that was shoveled out to me as well. Please stop pretending that you know shit that you don't fucking know. And when I say I don't know something, how dare you attack me for it?
My favorite example is the chariot wheels, which are unironically quoted, despite the fact that it was literally a parody website that published that. It was a less funny The Onion, which hasn't been funny since the internet out-memed it years ago, but a less funny The Onion, they literally quote a parody article for chariot wheels.
Yeah. We got a couple calls left.
I'd like to see your answer the question with David, because I struggle actually with this answering this well.
That's easy.
Good. David in DC, you are on with Jimmy and Matt.
Yeah, hi. Holy crap. Big fan, you guys.
We'll fix that.
I actually just started. No, I doubt it. I don't think this is going to be super contentious. I've been droning on with you guys, listening to the last couple of callers. I'm sure you guys have a lot of fun doing what you do.
Thanks, man.
So, yeah. So, I am a recently, I guess you could say, deconverted atheist. Grew up kind of a soft theist, if you will. Basically, I grew up Southern Baptist, and then around high school, I actually kind of converted to Rastafari. I was kind of on my own little spiritual walk there. Recently deconverted within the past, yeah, pretty much, yeah.
It's all right. You can say it now. It's legal in some form almost everywhere.
Yeah.
Indeed. It's not really something I have to hide from, and I don't have to have a religion excusing it anymore.
Yeah.
So there's the plus side. But that was me, kind of young and trying to find what I thought was the closest approximation to what I thought was I always knew religions were pretty subjective. So I thought I could kind of believe what I want and doctor it to just what I thought was, the closest thing to correct. And I grew to realize how flawed that was, because anyone can do that. Anyone can interpret whatever holy book or whatever passage, whatever popular preacher, and get to any kind of, result at the end of it. And that's kind of what I wanted to talk to you guys about. So I kind of consider myself a secular humanist. We live in a world where, we have like a good bit of intelligence to make the kind of lives that we have for ourselves, where we can talk to each other over a long distance via telephones. And it's pretty incredible. And with all that, consciousness, intelligence, we kind of like owe it to ourselves to try to make as good a life as possible. So, reduction of harm, promotion of well-being, is kind of the base for it. Or at least that's how I understand it to be. But for me, I've recently learned the term axiom, which is basically the fundamental root of your, of what you believe to be true. So like an axiom would be that I think well-being is our reduction of harm and promotion of happiness and health and mentally, physically. Those are very important. And I think when we're looking at what kind of laws should be passed or, things of that nature, that should be like one of the main factors. But I realized during a discussion that I had with a religious family member, that my axioms, my fundamental beliefs, might just be as flawed, I guess you could say, as a person who does not fall under, a humanist framework, someone who does not think that harm should be reduced, that does not think that well-being should be kind of the starting point for ethical behavior. And I was just wondering, how do you support like a fundamental belief that I can't prove that like well-being is good for us, right? But I just kind of believe it. How do you defend the undefendable, I guess?
You don't.
Sorry,
axioms are
spiel, by the way.
Axioms are assumptions.
Mm-hmm.
If you could prove them, they wouldn't be axioms.
Okay. Right.
You present an argument and evidence for them.
Right. Axioms can be justified, and you use the word justify in there, but not proven. That's what an axiom is. So the justifications for your axioms would be you would try and put your list of justifications against the non-humanist list of justifications, and they'd bear out.
So in a way, it's more of what I can defend, not so much what I can prove. Like I can't prove to you that it is in, if I'm talking to someone, like I can't prove that it in your it should be your prerogative to be concerned about your well-being.
Well, see,
I can only
David,
give them reasons.
David,
Sure.
David, you're talking about 20 different things. There's about 12 concepts going on right now. You're talking about how do you demonstrate an ought, and now you're into the is-ought problem of you can't demonstrate an ought from an is. But you're talking about it in terms of axioms. But instead of actual axioms, you're just talking about the things that you presuppose, which is a different version of an axiom. I really wish, get away from the language, axiom, presupposition, get away from all that. What is it that you're having difficulty demonstrating to someone?
What I'm having difficulty explaining is without a religious framework that I used to use to back up what I believe. I guess I'm struggling to convey that even from a position that like, oh, there is no like God that arbitrates morality, or that there is no God that is concerned for our well-being and strives to make the world or the universe for our well-being. It is still within our best interest, because we live in, we live collectively, that we should do things to maximize all of our well-being. We should all strive to be happy. We should all, and do things that
and
make
so
us happy.
To answer Matt's question, that position you're describing,
I'm sorry.
You're having difficulty demonstrating that is less arbitrary than the religious person that you're arguing with.
In a way, I guess, yeah.
Okay, I'm just trying to clarify.
I find it arbitrary in that like anyone could just arrive at it, but it's not. I guess it's not arbitrary in that it's just like a random concept. Like I think it's very easy to defend. I guess it's just like, how I can make it clear that like that is the starting point, and that I don't have to have like a religious framework backing it. If that makes sense. I might have muddied the water there, but.
So, I asked for an example of a concept that you're having difficulty to explain to people. And what you said is, how do you show without a religious framework to convey a position of if there is no God that strives to make the universe, that it's within our best interest because we want to maximize well-being to strive to be happy? That I took all that down as notes. So what I've got is the position is that we should strive to be happy. Well, how do you know that? I don't know that that's necessarily the goal. Maybe somebody else should have a goal. The first thing you've got to do is not go, how do I convince someone of this? You need to understand why you're convinced of it and whether or not you think it's good and for a good reason. So I don't view striving for happiness as a foundation of morality. I have no objection to striving for happiness. I don't also have a simplistic view of maximizing well-being for everyone, because I recognize that that's not possible. And so the reason I began with the foundation of well-being is that religious people, if you ask them questions, they care about it. Do you care whether the world's better or worse? Do you care what sort of impact your actions have on other people? Do you care whether or not we're concerned with health and societal health and all these other things? You get what they value, and it's either consistent with what you're talking about, in which case you have no more work to do other than to say, then you care about this too. You just may not call it morality, or you get to the values that they don't share. And it's not going to be easy. There's people who are going to be like, all I care about is what God wants. And so then the question has to be, how do you know what God wants? And why do you care what God wants? Why does what a God, there's no objection to secular moral positions that is in any way solved by appealing to a religion. So starting at the beginning of your answer, you said without a religious framework, religious frameworks are irrelevant. There's countless religions over history that have countless different positions on countless different subjects. So religious framework isn't relevant to whether or not something is good or desirable. And then how do you convey with a position of whether or not there, or whether if there is no God? Doesn't matter if there's a God. I can't prove there's not a God, depending on which God it is. And so if I can't demonstrate that there is or isn't a God, and they can't demonstrate that there is or isn't a God, then that's also irrelevant. And what God's striving to make the universe is also irrelevant. All we need is to recognize that you and I share space, and that my actions have consequences for both of us, and so do yours. And at that point, if you have a religion that says, hey, thou shalt not murder, and I don't, we could still agree on thou shalt not murder, because I would rather not be murdered. And I'd rather not have my loved ones murdered. And I'd rather live in the sort of society that makes sure that if people that discourages murdering, either they're through imprisonment, rehabilitation, or capital punishment, if we want to go that far. And so even with two separate foundations, or what appears to be two separate foundations, you and I can come to an agreement that we are going to build a society that discourages and criminalizes and views murder as immoral. That's all it takes, is the fact that we're humans who share space. Everything else is a waste of time and is a betrayal of humanity. Because in the religious sense, they're saying you shouldn't murder people because it would make God mad. Well, what fucking difference does that make? Why is it that I should care? Oh, well, God forgives you. Well, if God forgives you, that doesn't do me any good. If you owe me $20 and God forgives that debt, I still don't have my $20. If you break my leg and God tells me you're sorry, that doesn't do anything for me either. And meanwhile, there's no evidence that there is a God doing anything or wanting anything or enacting any sense of justice in this life. And so at the end of the day, we have a bunch of people who are sharing space, trying to figure out how best to do it. And you have one group of people saying the best way for us to do this is to follow the traditional views of what people thought God wanted. Well, if it turns out there is a God and they got it wrong, that God's going to be pretty pissed off. But if there is a God and we find the right answer about how to live with each other, any God that is upset with me having a justification for not murdering people is evil. And I don't need or care about him or anybody who's advocating for him. It's like the guy we had calling earlier today, who doesn't care if God is good or evil. He's just going to follow him out of fear. Morality isn't a might make right proposition. And at the end of the day, if what I'm calling morality, somebody else doesn't want to call it morality, fine, throw the language out. Because what I'm advocating for is the system by which we ensure that individuals have sovereignty, and that the areas in which our actions interact and have consequences on each other is legislated in a way that is equitable to all. That probably the most important principle, maybe in any subject, but definitely with regard to morality, is Rawls' veil of ignorance. And that is this: design the moral system that you're willing to live under, not knowing who you will be in that universe. So if you want to have a moral system that says we can enslave the poor, are you actually okay with that if you're one of the poor and enslaved? It's like having someone, you get to cut the cake into equal pieces, but you get last pick of which piece is left over. That's one way of encouraging fairness and equity. And if you build a system, if you don't know if you're going to be a man or a woman, are you more likely to be in favor of equality based on gender? And yes, I know that there's beyond man and woman as well. But if you're going to be, if you don't know if you're going to be born queer, are you going to advocate for a system that is pro-queer bashing and denying of rights, or one that's in favor of equality? Rawls' veil of ignorance does a great job of making it clear to everyone. You and I are going to rent a house and we're going to share space. My bedroom is my bedroom and your bedroom is your bedroom. And the only thing that we have to govern about what's going on in those bedrooms is anything that might make its way out of there, like noise or smells, or if you're keeping food in there that's drawing flies that impacts the rest of the house. Then there's the common areas that we share, and the rules for those common areas need to be equitable. What's happening is the religious views are setting it up so that they own the house and you're just a part-time tenant in the house, and you're on questionable footing. And that is about as close as I can get to explaining to them why this is one big dorm room and we need to have some rules, and then the rest of it, mind your own fucking business. But that's as close as I can get. But you don't ever have to justify an axiom.
Right.
Prove it. You can justify it.
Right. No, yeah, sure. I kind of gathered that was the idea of, the axiom, that fundamental belief. It was more of a matter of, conversationally, especially given my family, very religious. And it's something that comes up a bit, as far as, well, if there's nothing tethering your morality, or if there's nothing tethering how you behave, then you'll just do whatever you want. And of course,
what tethers my reality? What tethers my reality is an understanding.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
What tethers my reality is an understanding of the facts of reality, and that my actions have consequences on others, and demonstrating empathy and compassion towards others, with the understanding that I don't live in a box on my own.
Yeah, it makes perfect sense. In your dorm room analogy, or renting a house with roommates, is actually a great way to put it. I never really thought about it in that way. I always think, grand scale. We all live in a society that we all rely on each other. But bringing it small scale kind of puts it in a better perspective, I think, and it's more palatable. Thank you for that.
Cool.
Sure.
Thanks, David.
That was kind of it. I do apologize. My wording definitely could have been a bit more straightforward.
No, you're fine.
Part of that is jitters.
You're fine. You sat on hold for almost an hour and a half, and we got there. That's it. You asked a question, we got answers. It's all cool.
Cool.
No, yeah, thank you. Y'all have given me quite a bit to think about, and thank you again for having me on. Again, I really love the show. You guys do great work.
Thank
Dave.
you. I didn't actually ask if I could call him Dave before I switched from David to Dave. Go on.
So I see another caller.
Mm-hmm.
And this is going to be fun just because of the final word.
Yeah, it will. I'll let you tell us your name. Introduce yourself, the caller from California. Can you hear us? Go ahead.
My name is Alok from LA.
Alok, okay.
Thank you.
Go ahead and give us your question, your proposition, your point of discussion.
The point is that we are seeing a recent backlash against the left movement for anti-LGBT, anti-vaccine, anti-evolution. And I think we can co-opt these people, and some of them might be bigots and misogynists, but I think some of them can be convinced that we are not crazy. So my opinion is that we can either fight with them, or argue with them and win, or we can co-opt them. I prefer the second option, and so I think my question is that we should do that, because there's a lot of people in my space too who do not agree with a lot of this thing, and maybe we have gone overboard. I'm not sure how to. Yeah.
Yeah, just give us the
couldn't
question.
hear what the second option was.
Co-opt is what I was hearing, that we could co-opt the people into at least accepting that we're not crazy, was I think the phrasing.
Yeah.
Not necessarily convince them that we're correct, but co-opt them into believing we're not crazy.
Yeah, because many of these people are big scientists and big believers in science, and they seem to have a problem with the anti-LGBT and all those things. And
I don't understand. I genuinely don't have a clue what you're talking about. For pro-science people who have a problem with science, I'm not sure I understand what you're talking about.
Alok, are you perhaps mistaking people who like to say the word science a lot as pretending to be pro-science, like the way Matt Walsh likes to say, only men can be men and only women can be women. That's science, without any of the nuance. Are you saying they like to claim science but are anti-science? Is that what you're getting at?
Actually, they are very familiar with the science, but they don't agree with our opinion, and they think that we are going overboard with the whole trans thing and all. So I think
then they aren't pro-science, because the trans thing, as you put it, is pro-science. So you're saying they're pro-science except for the science they don't like.
I can't have nothing to say in this conversation until there's something explicit, because everything is so vague.
All right, here, Alok. Your note that you gave to the screener was you want to talk about anti-science and whether or not it is worth arguing with people on Twitter over their anti-science beliefs. Is that in a roundabout way what you're asking? Because it's what you just asked doesn't sound like the same thing.
I think there is a reason for the backlash, and what the reason is. Some people are bigots, some people are misogynists, but some people actually have studied science for many, many years. And so the backlash against the left and the atheists, because we obviously believe in science and we believe in evolution and all that.
I can't do this. Look, I can't do this. We can't speak in generalities about the atheist. Richard Dawkins is a transphobic bigot, but an atheist and a scientist. You can't lump everybody together. I need a specific example before I can actually address it. And when you keep saying the backlash against the atheists, I don't know what you're talking about. There's been backlash against atheists across the board. What I really need, I'm not getting it. I need something specific.
Yeah.
I think my point is that if these people have studied science for so many years and they think that something is going wrong with our perspective, they might have a point. And the
okay, I think I get it. Oh, look, do you support trans? Do you support trans rights?
Absolutely.
You support trans identities.
Yep.
You support people's right to identify and participate in society and to use the bathroom of their gender.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah. Then I don't fucking get it at all, because you just said it sounds like they have a point. If Richard Dawkins, was the scientist Matt says he has a problem with the trans issue, maybe he has a point.
But should we debate them and defeat them as rivals, or should we co-opt them? That's my point. That there must be some reason why all of these people are
all of these people are. I can't take any more. You keep saying all of these people, and you say our perspective. I don't know you from Adam. I don't know what our perspective is. I can't do this. I cannot do this conversation anymore. You keep saying these people who know science have an objection to our perspective. I'm assuming that you're being a trans ally and that might be the our perspective you're talking about. But every time I try to get something fucking specific, it is more vague stuff about these people or this thing or they know science or who the fuck is they and what are they actually objecting to? I cannot give you an answer without specifics.
Well, one specific is Elon Musk and all the discussions about anti-vax. And I obviously disagree with that. But, and they're not bigots and all that, but they are looking at something. And I disagree with that. But I'm saying that let us not argue with them. Let us try to co-opt them into our atheist movement. And anti-vax is not atheist movement to begin with, and neither is anti-LGBT, but they are sensing something that we are going crazy. And
I'm going to try one time to see if I can correctly summarize your question. And if not, I think we just have to give up. Alok, is your question this? There are lots of forces out there that are anti-vax. They are anti-LGBT. They claim and are representing that they will listen to science. So the question is, should we fight them or try non-argumentative ways to convince them and bring them into our fold?
Yeah.
Is that the question? Just let me know if that's the question.
Yeah.
Okay.
Tell them that you guys are mistaken, and science.
No. Just look. Don't give me more details. Just tell me if I have the question right.
Yes.
Okay. So we're gonna pause there. Some people should fight them, and some people should not fight them. Some people should use debate. Not scientists, unless scientists are also debaters, unless scientists are also communicators. If they have both skills, they should. And some people should use outreach education programs. Some people it is worth fighting on Twitter for, and some people it is worth being the fighter on Twitter for. The reason why Matt said this would be a funny call is because your last word on our notes was Twitter. I'm leaving Twitter. I have decided that it is not worth it for me to fight on Twitter anymore, but it is worth it for me to fight in other places. So when you're asking which one, as a person on the side of science, LGBTQA plus issues, whatever else, should we do? The answer is you don't only have to do one. Yes, some people react to fighting by just becoming more affirmed in their belief, even if they are wrong. Sometimes it leads to further polarization, and other times it doesn't. So for the people it doesn't, and it helps, you have the fighters out there. And for the people who need another method, you have those people. Matt and I fight people because we have a lot of very good justification to do so, considering the now many thousands of people we've heard from about how it has either helped them deconstruct themselves or help them articulate their own arguments better. So as long as I have your question correct, that is the answer to the question I summarized. And I think we're good to go unless Matt has anything additional to add on top.
I argue with people on Twitter, not because I think there's a big benefit or a likelihood that I'm going to change that person's mind, but because it gets an audience for all of the people who stupidly agree with them and yet aren't under fire. Does that work? I don't know. I have zero interest in having arguments in short little tweets, and yet I do it on occasion. Mostly I do it to amuse myself and to mock people in the hopes that when somebody else who agrees with them watches them being viciously mocked and made to look silly, that they will take that on board and potentially go change their mind. But I have no data and no real good reason to think that any argument on Twitter has ever really helped someone.
But Matt, do you think we are losing these people because we are
losing what people? You haven't told me what people. And if I'm losing people who are bigots, I don't fucking care.
I think Alok is doing.
at some point, you either are with us or you're not. No, I'm not talking about you, Alok, but do I think that we're losing people? If I'm losing people because they're bigots, good. I don't need them. I don't want them as fans. I don't need them as friends. I don't want them as family. I don't give a fuck what happens to them in their life. I don't need toxic influences in my life.
Yeah,
look. Are they reachable? I don't know. I've tried to reach them. I've tried to reach some of them many times. But at the end, if I lose them and all I've done is be honest and humanistic, then anybody that I've lost through that method is no loss.
Look, I think the thing that you're doing here actually annoys the fuck out of me. And I think if I'm right about what you're doing here,
which isn't your fault.
Well, I think Matt's also about to realize that if Matt agrees with me, I think he's about to also be annoyed because it's something that comes to both of us. I don't think you're calling in with a genuine question of what's the better way. I think that the motivation of this is to say, because you've used a lot of I statements and you've advocated for a specific thing, I think I know a better way to engage these people than I see the two of you doing. And rather than myself go off and do that better way and show that that better way works, I've called to suggest you two and people like you two should do my better way, which is something we get.
I don't see that this time
in other forms. I do.
I know. And you could be right.
Yeah.
And we got no way to prove it.
So Alok, is it true that you think the co-opting way is superior to the debating and arguing way?
And what's co-opting and how do you do it?
So I'm from I'm a technical graduate from India. A lot of my friends are the same.
Sure. Let's just do the questions one at a time. Alok, do you think that the co-opting way, and then we're going to do Matt's, what do you mean by co-opting? Do you think the co-opting way is better than the argumentative way? Yes or no?
Because we want them
just
to
yes or no, please. Please just yes or no for the moment. Yes. Okay.
Yes.
Please define for Matt what you mean by co-opting, and just define that. No stories, no anything. Just what do you mean? What is to co-opt someone as opposed to argue? What does that mean?
I think co-opt means that you guys are wrong because of these reasons, and I think argument means we will defeat you in this debate. So if I have to co-opt a friend, I would tell them that your anti-vax nonsense is crap, and these are the reasons. As opposed to if I argue with them, they will not listen to me because it's obviously
okay. So it's tone. You think the difference is tone because you just described an argument twice and said there was a difference. Your co-opting suggestion was an argument. So you mean tone is the difference. How you say your thing is crap is the difference between co-opting and arguing, correct?
Yeah, because an argument is a presentation of a case. You're saying it's better to co-opt them by saying their argument is crap?
But more politely than you would if you were arguing with them.
I'm not convinced that it was more polite.
In his mind, I think. This is why I'm still convinced of my earlier assertion.
Do you think it's more polite to tell someone their argument is crap than to show why it's fallacious and offer a counter argument?
I think it's a matter of courtesy, and when you talk to people and you are polite, I think they're more receptive.
But no. You said that you would tell someone their argument is crap. How is that polite?
Well, maybe I misspoke. I think I was trying to say that this anti-vax, anti-vaccine, anti-LGBT thing is not true because these are the facts, as opposed to telling them that they're bigots. So my point was that let's not tell them they're bigots.
Okay. Okay, so Jimmy was right. Yes. You're suggesting that telling people that they're bigots is not as good as saying, here's the facts that show you're wrong. That's your whole thing.
Yes.
It was tone policing.
Go out and do it. Go out and do it and get some fucking data to show that you're right. And when you get enough data to show that your method actually works and turns bigots into non-bigots, call me back. And until that happens, don't.
See ya, look.
But
I apologize, Jimmy. You were completely correct.
Oh my God, that hurt. I just
for whatever reason, I did not hear the tone policing thing, but it was clearly there in a way that I missed, because you know what? I've spent 20 years arguing with religious folks, and I've done it every way that you can imagine. And I've spent a good chunk of that time arguing with bigots about LGBT issues, about vax issues, just general scientific. I've done it in all sorts of ways. I've done it professionally on a stage without uttering an ounce of profanity. Granted, that's a little rare, but I have in fact done it. I've done it by citing sources, and I've done all of these things on massive podiums out there. And you know what I've learned in the 20 years? There is no right fucking answer, you dipshit. There are many different ways to do it, and there are some people who aren't going to stop being bigots until you call them bigot and shame them publicly into being embarrassed to ever say anything bigoted again. And if in fact that's not enough to change their mind, then shutting them up is the next goal, so that we make a world where my friends don't have to be feeling constantly attacked every day for who they are just because somebody else is a narrow-minded bigot. And if calling a bigot makes me the bad guy, then give me a fucking Hitler mustache and rim me after tacos, because I'm going to keep doing it.
Honestly, the second part you said there is why, even if calling someone a bigot didn't change their mind, I'd still do it if the people for whom I am advocating for felt a sense of safety and community and felt like somebody has my back, somebody's willing to call a hat, and somebody's willing to recognize and say it. Even if calling people, which again, Matt and I would both argue it does work at times, even if it never changed anybody, if it identified which side of the fight I'm on and told my allies that I'm their ally, I'd still do it. Fucking Christ.
I'm so fucking sick. Sorry, time for rant number 8.
Go ahead.
I am so fucking sick of you high-minded, self-righteous jackasses that have never spent a single minute taking live calls from strangers and having your life attacked nonstop for every fucking word that you ever said. There aren't videos out there saying Matt is factually wrong and here's why. That shit just doesn't happen. It's fucking tone policing nonstop. Well, for those of you who've never done what I've done, go do it and show how to do it better, because everybody else who's tried it has failed to show that they're doing it better. And yet, oh, well, you're just mad at God. No, I'm not. I don't believe in God. Well, you just yell at people. No, I ask them questions. And when they obtusely avoid the questions, when I ask for them to tell me what God they believe in, and they can't fucking do it, they can't even get in the ballpark, they can't present a methodology when asked, they don't understand a single fucking thing about any of these topics, and yet they want to sit on a high horse to judge whether or not I'm closed to learning, whether or not I've shut down and stopped learning when I know these subjects better than they do, when they want to suggest that, oh, Matt's just an asshole with a tone, when I've sat here patiently for 20 fucking years to the point where it gave me a heart attack to try to reach people in many different ways. If you think you got a better way, put up or shut the fuck up. I'm done taking calls from tone policers. Get fucked.
You know what's funny too about that whole concept is there are lots of people who come and go, I think I have a different way that is also very good. And you know what we do? We give them fucking shows, or we invest in their equipment. It's the assholes who specifically think the thing you're doing, you should stop and do my way. Those are the people that can fuck themselves, because the people who aren't that way, we end up investing in. That's literally what we do over here.
And Shannon, I'm sorry, Shannon, I'm putting you on blast. I love Shannon to pieces. She knows it. In our little group chat behind the scenes yesterday, there was a caller. And when I got done getting down to, how ineffective this person's God was, Shannon sent a message saying that I was way nicer than she would have been. And I was like, would you please start telling people that? Because I'm tired of being labeled the prick and the asshole and everything else. And everybody's like, oh, we all love Shannon. Shannon's a beast, and justifiably so. Shannon, when you get Shannon riled up, you fucked up.
Yeah.
And you are about to get a deserved smackdown. I might fly off the handle more often or for different subjects. But yeah, I'm so sick of the tone policing. Well, don't you think on Twitter, maybe we should No, I think we should leave Twitter. I think Twitter should be allowed to become the Nazi fascist, bigoted cesspool that Elon Musk really wants it to be, because that guy has never been impressive to me and has become increasingly less impressive every time he fucking tweets. He doesn't understand the English language. He didn't understand the term non sequitur when he used it the other day. I don't know why this cult of personality has taken this absolute dipshit and elevated him to the point of being one of the richest people on the planet that we need to somehow pay attention. And if you use the term cis or cisgender, that's considered a slur. Go fuck yourself, Musk.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm leaving Twitter, I can't think of a better sentiment to end on than go fuck yourself, Musk. So thank you everybody for watching. In about 12 minutes, I'll be over on Aron Ra's channel joining for the Book of Mormon reading. Check out our shows this week. We are going to take Monday off this week for a little bit of an algorithmic reset, but we do have awesome shows otherwise coming up, starting with Dying Out Loud on Tuesday with Dave Warnock. I don't have the schedule in front of me, so Dave and somebody awesome will be there. Actually, I feel like I do know. No, I lost it. Wednesday, do you know who you have on Wednesday, Matt?
I think I'm on with Dr. Ben.
Hell yeah, that's true. That is right. And I
think that's correct.
This Thursday, I think, is the original Dream Team, Katy and Arden, on the Transatlantic Call-In Show.
That may be. Friday, I'm going to go float the Kamal in inner tubes. So
I'm going to try and force myself to do something fun on Friday if my health will allow it, because I got to do something, man. My physical health and mental health. You should just
go down with us, even if you can't float. You can drive around San Marcos and
check it out.
I don't know, have fun.
Yeah, could be. Don't know if that long a drive is in the cards for how I've been feeling lately, but if it is, I will do that. Yeah. Thank you everybody so much for watching. Thanks for hanging out. Thank you to the people who called, except for the ones who called to tone police us. Other than that, it's been a hell of a night. And by the way, don't forget, you should definitely check out our Patreon. We are about to, I really spent this month focusing harder than anything on our charity event. Now that is passed, we'll make sure we get some new patron events going. And we are actually have a couple new types of content that will be Patreon exclusive. And what I want to say is, when I say Patreon exclusive, the bulk of the content that you are used to seeing will still, Matt, are you frozen or still?
I'm very still.
Okay. Just making sure I was on air. Still, the bulk of as far as the line content goes, we're not putting anything that you're used to seeing and deserve to see behind a paywall, but we are going to be putting fun stuff, extra stuff, behind the Patreon thing and make it even more worth it, make the value of that patronage go up and up and up. Because right now what we really need, we kind of got a little interruption when the whole hack happened and everything. What we really need is to up our funding so that these goals that we've already told you all, things like the community center, I'd say right now, I'm actually going to switch the priority to making LineCon happen. Originally, it was in the other order. We want to make sure that we can do things like LineCon next month. So if you can consider supporting on Patreon, that would be huge. And if you do so, you might end up on a little screen like this that says, you're one of our Patreon producers. That's our top tier on Patreon. This song is a bop. Arden picked this one, and I love it. Hell yeah. Goodbye, everybody.